The fight of the century deserves a show of the century. It is the 3rd of May. Welcome to another episode of Submission Radio. Dennis Shkroutov here with Kasper Ozlowski as always. Cass, what a weekend in sports and entertainment and everything in general.
Yeah, who would have thought that a weekend with no UFC events, no fight nights, no pay-per-views, nothing like that would actually be one of the biggest weekends in sports, not just in boxing, not just in combat sports, but there's a whole lot of things happening in the world of sports. It's a really big day all over the world. We, of course, being a combat sports show, will be covering the Manny Pacquiao Mayweather fight, and we've got some big juicy guests this week. We have Luke Rockhold coming off his big victory over Lyoto Machida. He's going to be on the show chatting to us about Weidman, the way he matches up with him, Vitor Belfort, a whole bunch of things. We've got Aussie Soa Palelei. He's going to be on the show. His fight just got announced with Bigfoot Silver, so we want to chat to him about that. And of course, the UFC flyweight champion, Demetrious Johnson, Mighty Mouse, is going to be on the show. First time for him. We can't wait to chat to him about that last second armbar and what happens next, if he's going to fight Jon Johnson, and of course the criticism that he receives. We also have another guest, Karim Zidan, a fantastic journalist from Bloody Elbow. Wow, how could we forget this huge drama with Jon Jones being stripped of the light heavyweight title, possibly the greatest fighter on earth? So we have to cover that. We figured, you know what, let's get Karim on the show. We will discuss it as a roundtable discussion. And the other thing is, Karim went to Russia recently. Actually, he's been there a couple of times. Saw some crazy things with M1 Global. There was a fighter who was part of a cult. He did some commentary. He saw night fighting. We're going to be talking about all those things with Karim. And afterwards, we're going to be talking about Mayweather Pacquiao. So suffice it to say, it is a very juicy episode this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, Cass. And, speaking of Mayweather, Demetrious Johnson really put in one of those superb performances the weekend before. So it's going to be great to have him on the show. Guys, the forgotten card of the UFC Adelaide. We will be there for you, and we will be bringing you guys content from the weekend. What are we talking about in terms of content? We're talking about a Q&A with Alistair Overeem. Talking about interviews with the guys on the card. There's going to be plenty of names for us to talk to, and you know the way we do our interviews. So make sure you keep an eye out for all of our UFC Adelaide content, youtube.com/submission radio AU. Obviously, you'll see it on the Bloody Elbows and other websites all over the world. But if you want to get it first, if you want to see it before it hits the headlines, jump on there. Me and Cass will do anything it takes to bring you guys the best content we can. That's why we're flying over to Adelaide for the first ever card in Adelaide. And let's not forget, Stipe Miocic versus Mark Hunt. It's not a boring fight. Something's going to happen. So we'll be all around that place, and we will be sniffing all over that place trying to get you guys the best content we can. So make sure you jump on that. Also, Twitter, if you guys don't follow us, Submission AUS, at Submission AUS. Make sure to follow us. Give us your comments. Give us your thoughts. If you want something from UFC Adelaide, don't be shy. Ask us. We love to provide our listeners and our fans with whatever they want. Cass, it's going to be a huge episode today. I'm really excited to do this pre-UFC Adelaide episode. Just a big couple of weeks happening here with Submission Radio.
Yeah, absolutely. And I figured I'd just mention also, we will not be doing a show next week, most likely, just purely with all the coverage and all the things that it's going to take to be at UFC Adelaide. We will be back the following week, so that will, I believe, technically be the second week of May. So we'll be back on track. We'll be doing the usual thing. But just next week, we're gonna have a bye, basically. So without further ado, there's no time to screw around. Let's get our first guest on the show, and I believe, Dennis, you are doing the introduction.
All right, guys. Our next guest is fighting Antonio Bigfoot Silva at UFC 190. He's a former AFC, KOS, and IKBF champion. He's Australia's very own Soa the Hulk Palelei, and he's joining us here on Submission Radio for the first time, surprisingly, on the audio version. Soa, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
It's great to finally have you on the show itself. So before we jump into your next fight, just wanted to go back in time a little bit for the listeners. You've been fighting since 2002, and many people may not know about the fact that you fought on Pride 28. The card was headlined by the classic Vanderlei versus Rampage fight. What was your experience like in Pride?
Pride was, I think back then I had the option to either go to UFC or Pride, but I wanted to go to Pride, obviously, because I thought it was just bigger in a bigger scale. A lot of the big fighters were fighting there. Vitor, Alistair was there as well, and it was just a good atmosphere fighting in front of 90,000 people. But yeah, it's awesome there. People in Japan are very respectful, and especially to that, because the whole culture is martial arts stuff. So no, it was good. It was good. I loved it there.
You know, it's interesting because we've had everyone on the show from Bob Sapp, Shamrock to Don Fry, a lot of Pride legends on the program, and everybody that's been on the show has had some kind of strange and wonderful thing happen to them when fighting in Japan. Just wondering, obviously you only fought in that one Pride, but did you have any strange experiences you can share with us from fighting over there in Japan?
No, nothing strange. It's the people are just, they're respectful in a way, but they're very like total different to the American crowd. The American crowd, they can be nasty, but the Japanese crowd are very respectful, and the whole 70 to 80,000 people, they'll be silent. All of a sudden, you do a sweep, and then the crowd goes off. It goes crazy. But if that happened in America, a lot of people in America don't care. They just want the kind of bloodthirsty kind of thing, but they just want just action, action, action. But in Japan, they're very, they're very like martial artists kind of, pride. They take that, in their pride and, stuff. But I loved it over there in Japan. And if it happened again, I'd do it again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it'd be awesome. I think a lot of people will be really happy if Pride did come back. Listeners also may not know that you actually did have a very short stint in the UFC back in the day at UFC 79, losing to Eddie Sanchez. When you were cut from the company, did you know you would be back one day? We can imagine it would be a devastating feeling.
Yeah, well, I think back then I signed a 4-fight deal with UFC, and that was my first fight ever in the UFC, and I think I come in there unprepared. Even though I was with a good camp, I was with Team Quest, but I, the first jitters, it is true. You get, in UFC, you get, your first fight jitters. Everyone gets it, and I got it, but I got it really bad. I didn't even know what was going on. I still can't remember what actually happened. So I kind of froze, which is not really a good kind of, fight card to be, freezing on when you've got, I was on the main card, and but and then I came back to Temecula, got cut, and that's it. Then never to fight in the UFC ever again. Come back depressed, and then I thought, you know what, I don't want to be remembered for that fight. I want to come back, and I want to be remembered for that I came back and I fought again and again and again in the UFC, and so I just trained, and 9 fights later, nine fights later, and 9 knockouts, I eventually got back into the UFC, and here I am.
Well, yeah, exactly right. And I mean, the streak that you acquired to get back in the UFC is very, very impressive. At any point in that streak, so did you feel like, man, I'm already on this many KOs, I've done this much, maybe it'll never happen, maybe I'll never get back in there? Because it took you quite a while to get back into the company.
Yeah, it did. Like, even after the 4 fights, we hit Joe Silva up, and then 5 fights, we hit Joe Silva up again, 6 fights, and he still didn't budge. 7 fights, and then 8 fights, and then the last one was against Sean McCorkle, and he was an ex-UFC guy, and then we thought, okay, this would be a good test. And then I got past him and knocked him out, and so then it was then eventually they gave me a shot. Got with a good team, management team, Paradigm. They're Paradigm Sports Management, awesome guys there, and they kind of facilitated my contract with UFC, and then eventually I got back in and had my first fight which was in Milwaukee.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of your fights before you got back in the UFC happened in Sydney against Bob Sapp. Sapp's been on our show, and he gave us the impression he was sort of throwing fights near the end of his career to pay off medical bills. You obviously beat him in 12 seconds. Did part of you feel frustrated that he may not have given you like a proper contest in the fight with him? And also, what did Bob say to you after the fight?
Well, he had a massive cut on his top of his eye. So when he came in, rushing in, first of all, we were at the weigh-in, I thought, man, this guy's massive. I don't want to be caught underneath him. And I thought, if this guy hugs you, he'll crush you. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to hit him and move. So the bell went, and I came in and I uppercutted him twice, and then left hook, and then turned him and took him down, and I just went as quick as I can. So punched him as quick as I can, but then he kind of turtled up, and the ref stopped it. So I mean, he's been through some wars. I don't know what happened towards the end of his career, but I still respect him as a fighter. Especially when he fought the Ernest Hoost back. And that was a real fight. That was like these guys were going to war. So, but he had a good fight against Big Nog and as well, and he showed some. I think towards the end of his career, I don't know what happened, but I fought him and that was it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one, and he was on our show, and he seems like he's in a very good place at least, and he's quite healthy and happy, so at least that's good. He's over there in Japan doing all the sponsorships and walking around the supermarkets, and all the Japanese people just running around after him. So I think he's still got a good thing going on over there. Now let's talk about UFC 190. It's been an eventful week for you as you found out about your next big matchup against Antonio Bigfoot Silva. How did this matchup come about?
My management team's been working on obviously not being on the Adelaide card was a bit of disappointment because there's a fight in Australia and I would have loved to fight there, but then again it's Adelaide. What is in Adelaide?
Hey, we have to go over there to cover that card next weekend, man.
Yeah. No, you know what? I like all the states in Australia, but
the city of churches.
Hopefully hopefully you guys don't get bored over there, but I'm sure there's something there for you guys. Maybe take your chessboard and Connect Four.
We'll be playing Angry Birds all the time.
Kind of disappointed, didn't fight in that, but the UFC were obviously working on something big for me, and I got a message from Audi and Saya. They're my management paradigm. Man, these guys are awesome. They manage Jake Matthews, Michael Bisping, Conor McGregor, Ross Pearson, and the champ as well, Chris Weidman as well. So they're awesome. And the good thing about these guys, not that I'm trying to plug them, but they look after you. They're like they're like a family. So, and it's awesome being with these guys. Paradigm, but in that. I got a message from these guys on Friday. You want the fight? And I said, yeah, cool, let's do it. And usually it takes me a couple of days when they tell me a fight, just to digest it. And then I didn't even get to digest it. And then Saturday morning I woke up with my phone full of probably 50 messages from different people saying, hey man, you Bigfoot. I was like, what? They've already announced it already. Wow, that's crazy. And then, I think it went viral. Everyone knew about it. But no, it was good. I got messages from Daniel Ricciardo, F1, because he's a friend of mine, and just heaps of other celebrity people that hitting me up and said, man, can't wait for the fight. It's going to be good. And it's a good card as well. Ronda Rousey's the main event, and Shogun's on there, Little Nog and Big Nog's both on there, Stefan Struve. So great card to be on.
Yeah, it's a really big card. It's actually a really good matchup because, we frequent the forums like Sherdog and the Underground and places like that, and that's the fight that people are talking about. So it's great that they put that together. Bigfoot's last two fights have ended in tough losses. Both Andrei Arlovski and Frank Mir have knocked Bigfoot out in the first round, and he hasn't looked the same since returning from his suspension and getting off TRT. Do you think Bigfoot is on the downswing of his career?
You know what? I don't think he is. I think he's, it's easier to hit someone when they're down, but when you do that, that they're going to come back. They want to come back, and this is a fight for him to come back. To try to come back and show that he can. He's still with it. He's still in the game. So, he'll bring it. He'll bring it in this fight, and I'll bring it in this fight. And we're both, we've both got heavy hands and stuff. So I don't see this fight going past the first round. Because he's a knockout, he can knock you out at any time as well, and I can do the same. So, and I'm looking forward to it. He's a beast, he's Bigfoot. I don't know if you guys seen his hands and his foot; it's like massive.
Yeah.
But it's good. I'm looking forward to this fight, and I can't wait.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the matchup. So obviously, Bigfoot has big wins under his belt against guys like Alistair Overeem and the ever holy Fedor Emelianenko, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. What are some of the things that you worry about in this matchup from Bigfoot? And tell us some of the advantages that you feel you have in this matchup as well. It goes with everything, every single fight that you have. You just got to be careful and kind of obviously play it out at the start and see where they're at, see where your range is at, and distance is very important as well. But
he's the same height as me. He's got long arms, long legs, so I'll be expecting him to come out and bring it, especially being in his hometown, and he's going to want to come out and impress as well. And yeah, like I said, we're both going to be going in there for either a knockout or for a win. So, but I don't see this going past the first round by either of us.
Now, like we mentioned before, so you were on an 11-fight win streak prior to the Jared Rosholt fight, a win over Bigfoot Silva in his hometown. Do you think you regain your momentum, and how close would you see yourself to getting a title shot?
I'm not. I'm just want to get past this fight at the moment, and then title shot maybe in the near future. But this will certainly give me a leg up, getting past Bigfoot. And that's a massive scalp, especially him beating my idol, Vitor, and and that. So and Bigfoot's no slouch, So it's going to be a tough fight. But I'm going to go in there with my game plan. My team is going to be watching his stuff and see if where we can find some weaknesses and stuff like that in him, and then we can hopefully expose it and see where we go from there.
Well, let's talk about your team for a second. Obviously, you train with the great Mike Quick Swick over there at AKA Thailand. You also train around Australia as well. Where will you be doing the majority of your camp for this one?
I'll be doing the majority of the camp back in Thailand. So that's where I'll be doing my camp with them guys. So it's an awesome camp. There was two guys there, two heavyweight wrestlers. Amir Akbari, you got to watch out for this guy. This guy's he'll make UFC and make top five very quickly. He's an Iranian wrestler. He's a two-time gold medalist, and he'll. He's crazy. And the other guy, Masood, they're both heavyweights, and Masood's a boxer and a high-level freestyle wrestler. So having these guys at that camp, and not only on top of that, you've obviously got Thailand. As you know, Thailand is known for their Muay Thai and stand-up. So that's perfect for me. And just getting up in the morning, training, and then come back home, sleeping, get up, train. So that's all you basically do there. And it's perfect for cutting weight, and the food you eating food it's clean food, and it's a great facilities. AK Thailand and is unbelievable. I don't know if you've seen pictures, but when you do check it out, because it's unbelievable. And if I'm in Sydney, I've got a gym there called Hulk MMA and Fitness in Sydney in Warrawood. So if anyone's in there, check that out. I use that gym when I'm in Sydney. If not, I just keep traveling and keeping traveling Woodbury.
Awesome. I actually didn't know that you had the gym in Sydney, so that's good to know. And of course, Mike Quick, we've had him on the show, I think, like 4 times now. We always talk about AKA Thailand. We always see the photos, and it looks like an absolute paradise. Since your last fight and your last big win against Walt Harris, what have you been working on? We remember you mentioning that wrestling was a big focus for you.
Yeah, wrestling's always a big thing, especially in the UFC. You're fighting against a lot of top wrestlers, and if you can kind of hold that back with kind of keeping that at A1, and that's the good thing about AK Thailand. Everything there, it's all like top notch. Great coaches, great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coaches as well. Great stand-up coaches, great sparring partners, and that as well. So I mean, after the Walt Harris fight, I still kind of still went back to the drawing board. You always can improve, especially from that last fight. I think I can improve more from that fight as well. And I just want to take it as day by day, fight by fight, and keep climbing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I guess the question that a lot of fans are wondering, and hopefully you could clarify this for us, so is it has been a while in between fights. You'll be fighting in August. You last fought in Sydney, and I believe that was quite a while back. Why the big break in between fights? Was it deliberate, or were you dealing with some injuries there?
Yeah, I just kind of I had some injuries after obviously in Milwaukee, I broke my rib the week before the Kryler fight, and I still fought on it, and it popped in the first round. I mean, it already popped anyway, and it popped again. and you know, a rib takes a long time to heal. And then I did the fight with Pat Barry, and he was still kind of niggling. And then after Pat Barry, I did the one in Cincinnati, and I thought after the Cincinnati fight against Ron Potts, I thought I'll give it a rest, and give maybe like 4 months or 5 months rest. And then they said, look, the New Zealand fight against Jared Rashad. I thought, oh damn, I didn't, yeah. So and that was really quick. I think that was like 6-week turnaround.
Wow.
And then and I thought, oh, okay, well, we'll do it again. And so then I kind of didn't have much time to, kind of rest and train in a proper wrestling camp. And I thought after that loss, I thought never again. So then I AKA Thailand, made that my home, and got some good sparring partners and that there, and yeah, making sure, man, my fitness levels, conditioning levels, it's at its peak. But I've still got a lot more to improve. But definitely being at AKA Thailand has taken me to the next level.
Yeah, and speaking of sparring partners, given your background with Mark Hunt and the fact that Mark has fought Bigfoot before, will you be getting any tips or advice from the Super Samoan?
Yeah, I'll ask him for a few, for some advice and stuff. But Mark, he doesn't really care who he steps in the cage with, because if he hits you, you better come prepared. You better make sure your chin is cemented to your head, because if he'll take that off. And but I've got a team that will watch and go through and making sure we tidy up my stand up and stuff, because the problem with Bigfoot, he can stand, he can throw hands, he can throw kicks, he can his ground game, and I don't think he's shown his ground game. And it'd be good if we did go to ground. We're both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, and I'm sure we can both tangle on the bottom, and then if we stand up, we can both throw. So it'd be good matchup.
Yeah, you're an accomplished grappler. You've won a whole bunch of grappling competitions, so that would be very, very interesting. Now, I guess the big thing about this fight, so, is it will be happening in Brazil, and it's Antonio's sort of home turf. How do you feel about going into Brazil, having all these Brazilians sort of booing and going against you? They're very passionate for their countrymen. How do you feel about fighting there? Also, we've had a lot of fighters come on the show that don't really want to fight in Brazil because there's some dodgy judges' decisions. So a few dodgy things happen there. Any of those are a concern to you going into this one?
You know what? And that's the thing, dodgy decisions and stuff like that. Like Dana White says, don't leave it in the judge's hands, or go in there and give it and finish the fight, and that's what I do, and I'm sure that's what Big Silver does. He likes to go in there and finish his fights as well. So, fighting in his hometown, it doesn't really bother me. I think, whether they cheer for me or not, it doesn't really bother me. I think it's the atmosphere. It's they're so Brazilian people are so energetic. Good vibes, good energy. I like that, and that will come. I'll get a bit of that energy as well, and I'll feel good and stuff. Whether it's going against me or not, I don't really. It doesn't really bother me. I don't care. It's just another fight, and I'm sure it's with Bigfoot as well. It's another fight for him, and we just go in there, do our job. After that, we shake hands and have a few beers.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So now we're going to round off the interview with something we call the Submission Radio Tap Out Round. It's basically where we throw a whole bunch of fun questions at you and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, kind of like word association. So you ready, Soa?
Oh, let's do it.
All right. Seeing as you're the Hulk, who has been your favorite Hulk so far? You got Eric Bana, Edward Norton, or Mark Ruffalo?
Mark.
Now, so you come up with a lot of inspirational quotes on Twitter. Do you come up with those yourself, and give us your favorite one?
Sure do. I come up with that. Man, I've got so many. My favorite one is, in 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on. So that's life.
Wow.
Keep going forward.
Wow. Well, no wonder. You were actually signed to Penguin Books, and is it true that you've got your autobiography coming out around November this year?
Yes, around November. So we're in the middle of writing it. So. Can't wait.
Yeah, that's right. You should put this interview in there, just as a part of the book. Had a great time with the boys.
Yeah, that's all I'm thinking about. I was going to change the name, guys, just so you guys don't get stalked.
Fantastic.
Well, if you're still looking for someone to write the forward for you, mate, you can always contact me. I don't really know you very well, but I'll put in a good one for you. Now, tell us about Soa's Song of the Week. What's the Song of the Week, and will there be a Soa Song of the Year?
Song of the Week is Josh Turner, Your Man.
Oh yeah. What about the song of the year? Will there be a song of the year at the end of 2015?
It's the same song.
So it's always Josh Turner.
Turn the light down low, put some music on it soft and slow, and baby, we ain't got no place to go. I hope you understand.
That's amazing. I did not expect singing from this interview. I feel like you got Penguin books, you got the UFC contract. You're gonna be on X Factor soon. Is that correct? So
I'm just waiting for Sony. Make sure you tag Sony in this, so see if we can get a deal happening with Sony.
Yeah. Now, give us your prediction. Mark Hunt versus Stipe Miocic next weekend. Who's winning and how?
I think it's going to be a hard fight, but I think Mark's going to come on top and come out with a KO.
Now, name one dream opponent from past or present that you'd love to fight. It could be anybody. We're talking about dream matchups here.
Okay, a fight that I have fought, or
no, that you'd like. So it could be anybody in the heavyweight division. If you could choose one person to fight, it could be any superstar from past to present. Who's one name that you'd really want to fight?
It doesn't matter if they're heavyweight.
Doesn't matter. It could be anyone. It could be flyweight if you want.
You can get the women's division if you want. That's fine with us too.
Okay, I want to Theodore because he's my idol. I'd just love to test myself against him. And I've always a massive fan of Theodore and BJ Penn, but yeah, love them guys.
Absolutely. Well, the good thing is he's a heavyweight, so that could happen. Well, if he was still fighting. If you beat Antonio Bigfoot Silva, what are the chances you'll be gunning for a high-profile fight at UFC 193 in Melbourne?
I don't know. Obviously, I mean, all the boys in Australia will want to be getting on that fight card, and there'll be a massive fight card, especially in Etihad Stadium, where it potentially could open up to 80,000 people. So, wow. To fight in that arena, just with the whole Aussie fans, that'd be awesome.
Finish this sentence for us, Soa. People don't know that I
am the best singer in the world.
Well, the good thing is, once they listen to this interview, they'll know that. You've got a solid statement. Finally, Soa, last question. Finally, give us the official prediction. How do you plan on beating Antonio Bigfoot Silva at UFC 190?
We're going to arm wrestle first. Yeah, and then we're going to go buffet table, and I'm going to beat him at the buffet table. And I'm going to eat the whole buffet table, eat his plate as well. I think, we're going to. It's a secret, but we're going to go out there and put the game plan together and go from there.
There you go, guys. Soa Palelei is going to eat Bigfoot Silva alive. You can check out Soa and his weekly show Hulk Talk on his Twitter at Soa the Hulk. And of course, watch him take on Bigfoot Silva at UFC 190. It's August the 1st. Soa, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's right. El Guapo here. That means the pretty face. All you guys out there, you're listening to Submission Radio. Godspeed and party on. Whoop, 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 whoop.
All right, guys. Our next guest is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. He is the current UFC flyweight champion, and he just scored an amazing win over Kyoji Hiraguchi with 1 second left via armbar at UFC 186. He is none other than Demetrious Johnson. Demetrious, welcome to Submission Radio. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, you being the flyweight champ, the honor is definitely all ours. You know, it's been a week removed from another dominant title defense. Tell us, what's your usual routine with your family after you finish a fight? Do you guys go on a small holiday? Is there a fun tradition you guys have?
Typically, it's just me coming home, spending time with them. You know, the kids are too young for the traveling. You know, my wife just had our second child, 10 days after my fight. And, obviously me and the wife are going to take a trip to Vegas here pretty soon for her birthday, Memorial Day weekend. And we're just going to relax with each other.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously you've got the new child, so congratulations, Demetrious. Now that the fight's over, does the wife put down some of the house chores on you? Like, look, Demetrious, you're not getting ready for a fight anymore. It's time to change the diapers and time to mow the lawn outside.
Well, obviously, since I'm back home from Montreal, there's no way getting around that. But I like to think that I'm pretty hands-on, even when I'm in training camp, changing diapers, washing dishes. That's just stuff I enjoy and be part of my children's life.
There you go. Champion in the octagon, champion at home. Now, you submitted Hiraguchi with 1 second left. Tell us about what was going through your mind. You were obviously going to win the fight, but you took a risk and you went for the armbar. Why did you do that, and how confident were you that you could actually finish the submission?
I was very confident I was going to be able to finish the submission. As long as I got myself in that right position to finish it, I knew I would be able to finish it. It was just a matter of time of me taking a risk to get in there. And I had no concept about how much time was left in the round. I just heard my coach Matt, yelling at me, saying armbar. Then eventually I was like, I'm gonna hit it. I stepped over and banged it out.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely a dominant win for a very dominant champion. What did you think of Horiguchi in the fight? Obviously, you got a good feel for him in the first round. He seemed a little bit more dominant, but then obviously you put in your game plan and did a very, very good job throughout the fight. What were your thoughts taken away from this fight, and what were a couple of things that you're going to be working on in the gym after this one?
Horiguchi's very tough. I mean, he comes from that karate background. The style is very difficult. I mean, you obviously see, when Lyoto Machida fights, he has the same type of style like karate, and people have a hard time dealing with that type of style. And we got straight to the game plan, which is taking him down and hold him there and finishing him with the submission. So the things we're gonna work on at the gym is just working on everything. The stand up, the clinch game, my grappling game, get a little bit better. That way, I don't have to wait to the very last second to finish somebody. But at the same time, everybody's pretty stoked that I got this submission at the very end, because now it's a record that can't be broken.
Well, that's exactly right. The thing about that submission is that you got it with 1 second left in not only the round, but the whole fight. Obviously, title fight, that's 5 rounds, 25 minutes. That record will never, ever be broken. I mean, like, win streaks can be broken, title reigns can be broken, but how do you feel knowing that you're in the record books for the rest of history, forever?
For multiple things, it's fantastic. I got the first ever flyweight champion of the world, 6 consecutive title defenses, and now, the latest finish ever in UFC history. So I'm just keep on putting my name in the history book, and hopefully it never gets broken unless the UFC goes to 6 rounds. So it's always awesome to cement my legacy with those things.
Yeah, you just said 6 rounds, and somewhere Rampage Jackson had a cold shiver go down his spine thinking about the possibility of having to fight 6 rounds. Now, when you accomplish something like that and are as dominant a champion as you are, where do you go from here? Apart from obviously taking the next fight, how do you challenge yourself further, Demetrious?
Keep on getting better and trying to improve. My last fight with Kyoji, there's a couple things, I sat down and I watched the fight, and there's a couple things I would like to be able to display out there. But, once again, it's a fight. Things are going to change. Things happen so fast in there. And I'm happy I came away with the victory. I didn't get dropped. I didn't take any big shots in that fight. So I'm happy. I'm healthy. My bones aren't hurt. I'm home with my family. I ain't got no concussion. So that's always a huge plus in my book.
Yeah, and it's a huge thing considering how tough Horiguchi was. The unfortunate thing about that amazing feat is that a lot of people that came to the arena that night, they didn't even see it because they walked out. How does that make you feel knowing that people didn't stay for the whole fight? Did it bother you at all, or take away anything from that special moment for you?
Not at all, because it's my moment, and it was very special for myself and the fans who stayed and watched it, and the people who tuned in.
And when it comes to self-promoting, Demetrious, you made it very clear that you won't resort to manufacturing fake rivalries or trash talk. And really, the fighter's job is to show up and fight. Now, the company is the one that handles the marketing and promotion of the fight. In any way, do you think the UFC are pushing and promoting you adequately enough?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that just doesn't happen overnight. I mean, this is my 3rd interview I've done today, and it's my day off. And usually I don't do interviews at all, after I get done fighting, because, everybody wants to talk about it. But, I'm starting to step my game up on my side to taking these interviews, doing them, and giving honest responses about it. So it's a slow working process, but we're on board.
Well, we can't tell you how much we really appreciate it. You've always been an utmost professional, but does it ever bother you that you put in another almost perfect performance and one of the pound for pound best in the sport of MMA, yet people are so negative about, sometimes you and your fighting? Is there ever a part of you that sometimes is like, man, what's wrong with you people? I'm arguably one of the best of all time, not in a arrogant way, yet you pay attention to the less talented and louder, more obnoxious fighters in the sport? Because, personally, it must be really hard. Would it be annoying for you?
It's hard, but I don't let it get to me. I have a family, a beautiful wife, and life to be worrying about than to let other people's thoughts and comments get to me. At the end of the day, you just got to keep on doing what's best for you, and that's being positive and surrounding yourself with very positive people. And that's what keeps me motivated and keeps me going.
And, obviously you've been a champion for such a long time now. Has it become easier for you to deal with some of that negativity now that you've been champion
it comes and goes. I mean, it doesn't matter if I was a champion or not. You know, negativity is always going to be there. Depending on my stature and status in the sport, doesn't make it easier to deal with it. It's just the type of person I am and the people I surround myself with, because they all see me as a Demetrious Johnson, which is the kid who grew up in Parkland and who's just trying to make it in the world today. And that's how I surround myself with positive people, so I don't hear that stuff. The only time I hear the negative stuff what people have to talk about is during media interviews and if I snoop online. But other than that, I'm living my day-to-day life. I don't hear the negativity at all.
Sure. Now, Dana White said, your time will come and you will be a superstar. And, if we look at history, it wasn't that long ago that the featherweight division was being overlooked for higher weight classes as well, despite how dominant Jose Aldo was a champion. Conor McGregor has brought a lot of attention to that division with his trash talk and belt stealing. Given your contrasting styles in terms of character, I'm just wondering what you think of Conor McGregor and the way he conducts himself.
I think Conor McGregor is a fantastic athlete and a promoter. And, I have nothing but love for the guy. He's great, and I'm very well looking forward to that UFC 189. Me and my wife, we've been watching the Notorious documentary, and it's just interesting. That's who Conor McGregor is, and I don't think it's an act. I don't think it's a front. I think he truly believes, what he says, and there's nothing wrong with that. That if that's where he was raised and brought up from, that's totally fine. Especially with the Mayweather and Pacquiao. If you guys have been following it, when Mayweather was training for the Olympics, he was still out there hustling. When he had a pendant from the Olympics, he was like, "Hey, yo, man, how much you want from this pendant right here?" He was still hustling. Now that he's an adult, he's still hustling. So you can't really say, oh, he's an arrogant, punk or something like that, because that's how he's been raised that way. The way I was raised was we don't talk shit. We don't run our mouth and do that stuff, because, where I come from, you do that, you get beat up on the street. And so I'm an adult now, and I still believe in that, and it's just not who I am.
Yeah, and you're a great role model for a lot of the kids out there who want to become MMA champions one day. And you're always a class act and a gentleman. However, kind of seems to really bring it out in people. Just wondering, hypothetically, if there was a similar personality at flyweight that confronted you, do you think you would ever engage in a war of words? Because you've mentioned that you're not interested in manufacturing fake trash talk or fake rivalries. But if you truly felt negative towards an opponent, would we hear Demetrious Johnson convey those feelings in the future?
I don't want to say it would be negative. It would never be negative things towards my opponent. It would be me just telling my true feelings. And like I said, I'm an adult. I'm not in high school anymore. Like when I hear people talking about that stuff and, trash talking back and forth, the Jose Aldo and Chad Mendes one, that kind of put a smile on my face when, Jose Aldo got hurt, and then Chad said, "Oh, you're scared," and then Jose was like, "Oh, well, why don't you give me some of that supplements you've been taking?" And then you can supplement these nuts, and he posted a picture of his wrestling, and that was kind of funny and back and forth. But for me, I just don't see that's going to happen.
Well, hypothetically, if you were in Dublin and there was a flyweight and someone like stole your belt or anything like that, what would your reaction have been? Would you have kept calm, or would you have done something else?
I would have done nothing, because it would not have been my real belt. My real belt never leaves my house. It's in my office above my computer. So I would have just sat there and laughed and say, well, that's good for you because it's a fake replica belt, but at least that's the closest you'll get to it.
It's funny because we had RDA on the show last week, and he mentioned that his belt just lies on the floor of his bedroom. So pretty funny. Now let's talk about some possible next opponents for you, Demetrious. John Dodson is the main name that people are talking about when it comes to flyweight challenges. Do you think that assuming he wins his next fight, he will be the man you'll face next?
Absolutely. This is the UFC, and I'm looking to fight the best fighters out there. With that being said, it's looking like John Dodson, but if Zach Markowski gets past him, it could be him. There's a lot more great matchups coming up. Wilson Reyes is taking on Jersey Formiga. We also got Chico Camus taking on Henry Cejudo. Joseph Benavidez also taking on John Moraga. So there's a lot of key matchups that are going to happen. And, anything can happen. Everybody back in the past, I was going to fight, the winner of Ian McCall and John Lineker. Obviously, something happened there. If I was that type of fighter that I got all my eggs in one basket, I'm like, okay, I'm fighting John Lineker, then I would have been not mentally prepared to be the best Demetrious Johnson on April 25th. But, it's whoever the UFC wants me to fight. Anything can happen in this sport. anybody can get injured training up to a fight. So I just keep my mind focused on myself, and when they give me that date, I just prepare to be the best Demetrious Johnson on that date.
Sure. And we hope John Lineker does return to flyweight just so that there is another contender there as well. Now, people are really excited about the rematch between you and John Dodson, so let's talk about him for a second. How do you see the second meeting going, and how much would you say you've improved and evolved since the first fight?
I see the meeting going very differently. Obviously, I expect myself to come out with the victory, but it's almost been maybe 2 years since we fought, and I've grown so much as an athlete, and so is he. Him overcoming the ACL surgery, and he's gonna have his first chance to come out here and fight, a pretty tough opponent. But, my game's been evolving. I've been working on my ground game, my stand-up game, and just my overall awareness. And I've been fighting guys that have been pretty tough. And I always tell people it's good for me to go the 5 rounds because I'm pushing the whole entire time in those 5 rounds instead of letting that one-shot KO punch on somebody. It's always good to have that too, but I think it's better for a champion and an athlete to go those 5 rounds, to be able to endure and push and put a beating on somebody.
Now, Demetrious, you're known for sort of just letting the UFC say who you should fight next, anyone, anytime. That's one of the things you're most respected about. Can you just take us sort of behind the scenes for a second? What's a typical offer from the UFC like? Do they just call you up out of the blue and go, Demetrious, this is the fight we'd like you to take, and you just go, yep? Or is there a consideration process for you before every fight?
You basically said it. They call us, say, hey, this is what we got going for you, and we basically respond like, sounds good. And then hopefully, we always my favorite preferable place I like to fight is in Vegas. I love fighting in Vegas because multiple reasons. One, it's a short trip, 3 hours, no time different change. There's the big lights. There's lots of fun things to do in Vegas. So you can make the week go by fast. When I was in Montreal, the week went by very slow just because there's honestly nothing out there. There's stuff out there, but not like Vegas. So I'm a Vegas guy, and I never complain about where I'm fighting or who I am fighting. When they call me, we just get after it.
Yeah, not enough lights in Montreal, I've always thought. Now, you've got one of the most awesome sponsors in the fight game, and that's Xbox. From what we've seen, they're pretty much your exclusive sponsor. As gamers ourselves, we can relate. However, with the Reebok deal officially kicking in July, we're just wondering, how will this affect your relationship with Xbox, and will you still have them as a sponsor?
Obviously with the Reebok deal being landed by the UFC, nobody will have any type of sponsor inside the Octagon, only the Reebok one. With that being said, we still have a great relationship with Xbox. If opportunity presents itself to where I can go and, host a gaming thing, or I went down and did the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare party with those guys in San Francisco, I can do those opportunity things. But as for the live event activation with Xbox, it's not going to happen anymore. And that's my big thing. That was our big thing relationship.
Yeah, that's a bummer as well, because it was almost the perfect relationship between you two. Now, the Reebok deal is a huge step up for the UFC in the sport of MMA, but it has been said that the top-tier fighters of pay, excluding the champions, will be around $20,000 per fight. Given your past experience with sponsors, how do you think this matches up with what most fighters are currently getting from sponsors? Is this a step up, in your opinion?
It's hard to say because everybody has their own sponsorship deals and their own way they go about managing and landing those big deals. So for me, I'm very happy with it. One of the things is that, a lot of the fighters don't have to go out and try to hustle and bustle with these different sponsorship companies. We all heard about, Fear the Fighter, how they haven't been paying their fighters. So I think it's a big thing that the UFC's coming in to bring us that money and that we don't have to show up. And it makes the sport a little bit more legitimized. Not too long ago, we had Condom Depot as a main sponsor for the UFC. So we got like, WTF, what the hell's going on?
The good old days, yeah, and the gun store and all that stuff. We get nostalgic every time we see like old UFCs with those sponsors. Now, we're going to do something fun with you called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round with a bunch of fun questions. But before we do, we just have one more question. We have to ask you, one of the other pound-for-pound best and fellow UFC champion, Jon Jones, obviously has been in the news all week. He was obviously involved in a hit-and-run incident and has been stripped of the title. What were your thoughts on the news? And also, do you believe the UFC made the right decision to strip Jon of his belt?
when I first heard the news, I couldn't believe it just because it's like, Jon Jones Hit and Run, marijuana in the car, pregnant woman, broken arm. And I was like, well, this can't be good. So with that being said, it's a very unfortunate situation. I obviously do think the UFC did the right thing. The UFC is probably one of the best organization in the world when it comes to mixed martial arts, and it's take care of its athletes. And this hasn't been the first time Jon Jones has been in trouble with the law. I mean, let's not forget the man crashed a $400,000 Bentley that the UFC bought him. I ain't got $400,000 Bentley, but they bought him one and he crashed it. So I think they did the right thing by, stripping him of his title, suspending him, and letting him take care of things that are important, which is him getting himself sober, 110% sober, and him focus on life again and take care of his family and leaving the drugs alone. So I think they did the right thing. And I think with him trying to defend his title, on Memorial Day weekend, just wouldn't have helped him in that cause of trying to get healthy.
Yeah, that's right. And do you think that one of the biggest negatives from this situation, apart from obviously the injury and all the stuff that happened around the hit and run, is the fact that Jon Jones is in his prime and fans and Jon Jones may miss out on an opportunity to fight in the near future? Who knows when we'll see him back? Do you think that's sort of one of the biggest negatives about the whole situation?
That we might be able to see him back?
That we might miss out on him in his prime and not be able to see him sort of fight, at a time where he's in the peak of his career.
He's 27, so I'm 2 years older than him. I'm 20. I'll be 29 this year. Excuse me. There's no really peak in mixed martial arts. It's all about how well you take care of your body, how well you recover from fights, and how well you keep on evolving. And I think a guy like Jon Jones, he's going to keep on evolving. He's going to get better. And this time period, hopefully he doesn't have to go do any jail time. And all this time he's sorting his things out and the legal issues, he's still going to be training, becoming a better martial artist because this is what he loves to do. And this isn't like something that's hindering his health. This is bettering his health. This is almost his escape from that other, the addiction. So I think we're going to see Jon Jones is going to come back and he might be able to get his title back and beat whoever the champion is.
Yeah, well, absolutely can't wait. Now, Demetrious, to round out the interview, we've got this thing called the Submission Rated Tap Out Round. We fire a bunch of fun questions at you, some not even MMA related, just to get to know you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, pretty much as quick as possible, basically like word association. So are you ready?
Let's do it.
What's your favorite Call of Duty game?
Ours
is Modern Warfare 2, just to make that easier for you.
No. I know how many there are. I'll say Call of Duty. I'll say Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. No, not Advanced Warfare. Modern Warfare. When it came out for Xbox 360.
Yeah, that was a great time. And apparently there's talks of them redoing Modern Warfare 2, which would be great. Now, what are you currently playing on Xbox? Hit us with the game.
Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, Destiny, Mortal Kombat X, and what's the other game I was playing the other night? Let's just go with those ones.
Mortal Kombat X, do you think Cassie Cage looks like Felice Herrig?
I saw the reference, but I don't think... come on, there's so many... My wife's blonde, and my wife can dress up like Cassie Cage, and I can make the whole debate.
Does your wife chew gum, though?
Yes, she does. She does chew gum.
There you go, Mortal Kombat, ripped off Demetrious Johnson's wife. Now, as a kid, did you play Nintendo 64 like us, and what was your favorite game?
Oh, man, Nintendo 64, I would have to be Star Fox and Mario Party. Mario Party was pretty dope.
Now, you were sitting next to Vin Diesel at one of the UFCs. Did you give him any MMA tips, and did he give you any driving tips?
No, when I asked for a picture, he felt like he didn't want to give me the time of day, to be honest with you.
No way.
Wow.
Vin Diesel, let me ask you this question then, because his voice is incredibly super deep in the latest movies. When you speak to him in real life, does he have a different voice to the voice in the movies?
And does he speak only in sound bites?
No, it was the same voice, so it was Toretto.
Wow. Here's a question for you, Demetrious. If you were a car, what car would you be?
If I was a cow, what cow would I be?
Yeah, if you were a car, what car would you be?
Oh, car. I thought you said cow, like moo.
the Aussie accent, yeah.
I was gonna be like strawberry cow. But if I was a car, what type of car would I be? I would be a Maserati.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, there you go. Quick, Nat, you tweeted out that you enjoyed the Kevin Hart movie Wedding Ringer. What's one skill that we could hire DJ for, much like Kevin Hart, to get the job done outside MMA?
Oh, well, being your best, washing your car. I'm pretty good washing.
This is the headline question right here, Demetrious. How do you feel about mustaches?
I got a beard. I'm okay with mustaches. I mean, mustaches are good. I'm good with it.
Okay.
Now, Demetrius, is it true that when you're in public, you generally don't tell people that you're a fighter?
Yes, my next door neighbor just found out what I did for a living. He knew I did mix. He knew I did mixed martial arts, but not to the magnitude that I do.
How long have you been neighbors for?
Over a year.
Wow. Oh, man. If you weren't a fighter, Demetrius, what would you be doing?
I would probably be in a warehouse working away or doing construction.
We saw a picture of you and Bisping on a plane on your Instagram account. Did any part of you feel tempted to shave off a little bit of Bisping's eyebrows for when he wakes up?
No, because I don't want to have to get in a fight in the first class with Bisbing.
Yeah, first class is nice, we've heard. If you could fly or have X-ray vision, which would you choose, Demetrius? You can only have one. Fly?
Fly.
Family Guy, American Dad, The Simpsons, South Park, or Archer? Which one do you choose?
South Park.
Now, other than fighting, playing video games, what's another hobby of yours?
Spending time with my you know what? I don't want to say spend time with friends. How about beer tasting? Each time, one of the things I love doing. I mean, I don't go out and beer taste on my own, but one of the biggest things that I do a lot of traveling on my own, and sometimes with my wife. And when we go places, we like to try different types of food and drinks. And I'm a huge beer taster. And the last beer I had that it was so delicious, it was called Black Phoenix Chipotle Stout Beer, and it was in California, and it was amazing.
Well,
Wow.
if someone ever offers you the delicious Belgian beer, just take that. Don't ask for Corona instead.
Now, Demetrius, if you could be stuck in one of the following characters' bodies for a day with zero consequences, which one would you choose? The Master Chief from Halo, Kirby, the rugged dude with the beard from The Last of Us, the lunging ball and chain with teeth that sounds like a dog from Mario 64, Lara Croft, or Trevor from GTA 5. This is a tough choice. Make a wise decision, Demetrius.
I'll do GTA 5 because I can do anything those other people you just named off besides the dog from Nintendo 64 Mario. I do all the other stuff.
Yeah, plus Trevor's awesome, our favorite character. Guys, you can follow Demetrious Johnson on Twitter at Mighty Mouse UFC. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to chat to you today, Demetrious. Thank you so much for doing the show, and we can't wait to see who you get matched up with next.
Hey guys, I appreciate it. You guys have a good time in Australia.
TJ Dillashaw. Don, I just want to say thanks to Mission Radio for having me on. It's been a good time. Can't wait to come back and do it again.
Our next guest is coming off a very impressive victory over Lyoto Machida. He is now regarded by most as the man to take on the winner of Weidman versus Belfort for the middleweight championship. He is a former Strikeforce middleweight champion himself, Luke Rockhold. Welcome back to Submission Radio, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh,
Thanks for the introduction. Feels good to be number one.
Well, there you go. That's two people in 2 weeks that have complimented our introduction. Tim Kennedy, of course, last week. It's great to have you back on. First off, we noticed that you were sitting cage side for UFC 186. How did you enjoy the event?
It was a pretty good show. Not bad at all. Demetrious came through with the 1 second less armbar, which is pretty amazing. I respect his style and what he brings to the table. The kid is just becoming quite the legend these days. So I think he definitely deserves his respect, and he's one of the best pound for pound for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And since you have a bit of a history with this man, just wondering, what did you think of Michael Bisping's performance against CB Dollaway?
It wasn't bad. I mean, he went in there, did his thing, as Michael Bisping does. It was a tough fight between the two. I think, he potentially edged it out with that last takedown. The last 30 seconds, I think, dictated the whole fight, really. I mean, it was that close.
Absolutely. Now, your fight against Lyoto Machida, it was extremely impressive. You were very confident going the fight. Did you expect it to be as dominant as it basically was?
I knew it would if it touched the ground. I think I could have. I knew I could have dominated him there. I was surprised that we would engage so quickly. I thought there'd be a lot more of a feeling out process on the feet. He was pretty quick to engage with me, and that kind of threw me off. I think that was my biggest surprise. I thought we would there'd be more of a dance process and feeling out. I like to get my rhythm and then get going and then let my strikes going and let the power fly. He really jumped on me with a left hand, tried to come at me within the first 5 seconds or so after watching him a couple times. I thought it'd be hard. I thought I might need to outstrike him on the feet, like take my time and then hurt him and maybe get a takedown and then I could finish it. But sure enough, it went to the ground pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. After your win over Lyoto, I believe you were speaking to Ariel Helwani. You mentioned that you weren't too happy with your stand-up and that you were a bit nervous. Given how well you performed, I'm curious, why were you nervous?
I wouldn't say. It was Lyoto Machida. Lyoto's one of the best strikers ever, and I wouldn't say I was nervous. I was thrown off. I was thrown off by how quickly he engaged with me. I'm not that guy who wants to go in there. If you see any of my recent fights, I like to really get my timing, find my range, and then let it go. I'm not going to feel comfortable with anybody out there if I'm engaging within the first 10 seconds. I don't think it's smart. I don't think it's not in my style these days. I want to understand my distance, find my timing, and then attack. I think that was just the thing that threw me off. I wouldn't say I was exactly nervous, but I was just thrown off, and I like to get my comfort zone, and then I can really do my thing and strike. I think I could have done well with Lyoto and potentially won there too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we thought it was because of that scar that you suffered while surfing on the back of your head that looked a little bit like a bald spot. Going against a guy with a contract with Head and Shoulders, how did that feel not having your top hair game going into that fight?
A little nervous, I had to stay pretty. The gauntlet was set. It was the kid to come out looking better than him. He was making some hype on it. So I was already balding, so I was like one step behind. So I really had to make sure my A game was on. Couldn't take any more damage.
No, of course not. My girlfriend commented as well when we were watching. I'm like, shh, you don't say that about Luke. You just calm down over there. Now, going back to June of last year, Chris Weidman won a decision over Machida. Decision, of course. You did it in under 2 rounds. Do you think that says a lot about your chances against Chris Weidman?
I think I match up well with Weidman. I think that performance should show you that I'm very comfortable in the stand-up and in the ground. I think I wasn't, I was ready for any aspect of that fight, and I will be for Weidman. I said it before, I'll say it again. I believe I'm the best right now.
Yeah, certainly. And you looked like the best in your fight a couple of weeks ago. Now, you and Chris Weidman are a really exciting matchup. And I guess people are talking about that matchup because he's the champ. And a lot of people believe he may beat Vitor Belfort and retain his championship. You're both very good wrestlers. You have excellent grappling. You both have very great striking. What would you say that you do better than Weidman? And what would you say your advantages would be if you got the matchup with him?
I'd say that I'm going to impose my will on the feet. I think I have more weapons on the feet. You can't out wrestle me. Weidman's biggest strength is his wrestling and his pressure, and I'm not a guy that you can just come in there and pressure and out wrestle and dominate. Not at this size, not at middleweight, not anywhere really that much. And you gotta. I'm in there training with DC and Kane, and so I'm used to big wrestlers that try to bully me, and I know that's his avenue. And obviously, I feel comfortable on the ground. I think my grappling is second to none, and I believe I'm the better striker in that matchup. So it's just controlling, so hitting them on the feet and making them pay for trying to wrestle me. So that's the fight. Weidman's a champion. He's a tough guy. I respect him in so many ways. He's got power. He's got wrestling. But I'm more than prepared to take that title.
Sure. Now, when we spoke to you in Sydney last year, around the time of your fight with Michael Bisping, you seemed pretty open to who you'd fight next, including Jacare. Now that you've scored such a big win and caught out the champ, how disappointed would you be if the UFC offered you Jacare instead of a title shot?
I mean, it would. I would make the most of whatever situation presented itself. If we're Jacare, I wouldn't mind finishing our business we already had. I don't think it would. I don't think it'd be the same as last time. I've grown a lot. I was a young kid, and I was very unsure of myself at that time. And this is a different time and a different me. So, I believe I'm the number one contender. I think my performances speak for themselves. I think I went out there and did something to Lyoto that not a lot of people, many people, or anybody has done before. So, quality of opponents and fashion on finishing fights, I think is I think it's worthy. But we'll see how it plays out. I think I feel good about it.
Yeah, well, we feel very good about it too, Luke, and everybody's excited to see what happens. Just wondering, obviously you and Vitor had a fight and you had a loss against him. In a perfect scenario, who would you rather face for the title? Would you rather fight Chris Weidman? It's a fight everybody wants to see. Everybody would be excited about it. Or would you rather fight Vitor Belfort? It would be an opportunity to avenge a loss that I'm sure that you'd like to take. Which one would you prefer in a perfect scenario for the title?
Really? I win either way. Either way, I think it's a beautiful matchup for me on both ends. It's a big thrill. You got Weidman, you got East Coast, West Coast. You got the All-American battle, and you got the true champ. I mean, the guy who went out there and dominated. This would be his third Brazilian, legend in a row. So he would undeniably be the best out there at middleweight in some time. And Vitor, and then you got bad blood. Then you got that a genuine rivalry, and you got me coming for revenge. I love it either way. I'm looking to go out there and prove myself as the best fighter in the world. I think either way I accomplish that. Weidman goes out there, beats Vitor, makes it look easy. I think we all know that story. I come out there and beat Weidman on top of that. That proves that I'm the best one. I'm the better man. I got caught by a lucky kick. I go out there and get that revenge against Vitor. It'd be nothing sweeter. Nothing sweeter. So I'm happy. Either way, it's a beautiful situation for me. I think Weidman's the better fighter. I think he wins. And truthfully, that's what I like the guy. I prefer him to win.
Sure. Now, obviously, Chris Weidman and Vitor Belfort, they will be fighting at UFC 187 for the title, but you did make the point of calling out Weidman, though. Is it safe to say you're picking him over Vitor, and do you think you're looking past Vitor as a challenger to Weidman?
Exactly. I mean, that's what I see. That's what I see winning, and that's what's up. Vitor's a joke. I'll say it and I'll say it again. The guy hasn't fought clean once in his whole life. I think his whole career is a joke. So, but I'd be more than willing to go out there and to finish that one. So that's my opinion on it. I think Weidman's going to win. Pretty confident in that.
Yeah, no, certainly right. And obviously Vitor has had so many controversies with this TRT. A lot of fighters in the middleweight division don't feel very good about him in that regard. I mean, the big question is, how do you think Vitor will perform now that he's off TRT? Many people have automatically assumed that he will be a completely different fighter and not at the level that he used to be. What do you think? Do you think the Vitor that comes back will be a shadow of his former self, possibly?
Who knows? Who knows what Vitor you're going to see? I don't think you've ever seen a clean Vitor, so who knows what to say? When we're going to see potentially a clean Vitor. So that's a tough one to see because I don't think anyone's ever seen it.
Now let's move on from that fight. We spoke to Tim Kennedy last week, and he mentioned how when Strikeforce was being absorbed into the UFC, nobody gave you guys a chance against the UFC's fighters. And now the top fighters at middleweight are almost all Strikeforce guys. You've got you, Jacare, Yoel Romero, and Tim Kennedy. How does that make you feel? And do you feel like you proved a lot of doubters wrong?
It feels good to be on top and to shut off all the people that just believe in the UFC. So. I knew where we all belonged, talent-wise, way before I entered the UFC, and I analyzed the fighters and talent and ability, and I knew that all of us are right where we deserve to be. I'm just one step away.
Yeah, certainly. Now, for all the listeners around the world in Australia listening that may not know, you do train out of AKA, which is a phenomenal camp with guys like Daniel Cormier and Cain Velasquez. Take us into one of those training sessions. What's it like training over at AK? And do you attribute a lot of your success to working hard and sparring hard with those guys?
I training at AK is awesome. I think that we have more of a family atmosphere than most of the gyms. We were all homegrown talent. I mean, we all were obviously talented before we came, but Cain started his whole MMA career with us. BC started his from the beginning in MMA. Both good wrestlers. I came from wrestling, jiu-jitsu background, but I started everything there. And I mean, so many of our guys are built from the ground up, and we push each other and help each other in so many ways. We don't just let random people in our gym. There's a voting process, and we go through. It's pretty strict these days on who we just let into the real team. I mean, we have visitors all the time, but we're out there all to help each other. Khabib has been with us most of his whole career, and built him to being the true champion that he's about to become. It's so many guys, Josh Thompson and the whole Ultimate Fighter cast before, Mike Swick, and everyone's from the ground up. So I mean, it's fun. We go to war at times like all brothers do, but we always look out for each other. We're not looking for the kill, and in the end we embrace each other and help each other. So it's family.
Yeah, for sure. And like you mentioned, there's so many good fighters coming out of there. Recently with all the injuries, Dana White, he mentioned that AK is stuck in the Stone Ages in regards to hard sparring. I'm just wondering, what did you think of those comments? Is there any truth to what he said? And do you guys by any chance go too hard? Or do you think that's what you got to do to become such a good camp?
I think there's a reason why we're the best camp in the world. And we push each other. Just like we need to push each other. I don't really have many comments for that. We fight. I mean, we're the guys on top. We're the best gym, and so who knows how to train better than us? So that's my opinion.
Certainly, Luke. Now, we let the fans know that you were coming on the program, so we chose a couple of fan questions to quickly ask you before we wrap up the interview. The first question comes from a user named Colonel Mustard. He wants to know, having beaten the former light heavyweight champion so handily, what do you think that says about your chances of hypothetically fighting at light heavyweight?
I wouldn't shut the door, but I got a lot to accomplish here at middleweight. But it's definitely it's an open door for me, no doubt. I plan on dominating this division for some years to come. But that is an open. That is definitely there for the taking for me. I got family. I got a friend right at the top up there, so I ain't going anywhere until he does what is his thing, and maybe I can think about it in the future.
Absolutely. Now, Luke, we're going to do what we did last time with you when you were on the show called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round. We fire off a bunch of fun questions at you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Oh, actually, sorry. We've actually got one more fan question. It's from Ron Burgundy's Mustache. He is asking... Sorry, I'm just pulling it up.
Ron's mustache?
Ron Burgundy's Mustache. That's right. That's who's asking the question.
Oh, Ron Burgundy. Okay. I thought you said Ronda's mustache.
No. Ronda doesn't have any mustaches. Just Ron Burgundy. And Don Fry. His question is, Luke, big fan, you were on the show Millionaire Matchmaker. What was Patty like? How scripted was the show? And did you really ask that girl if she swallows?
It was an experience, no doubt. I just tried to have fun with everything I do in life, and I was just trying to make good TV. Patty's all right until the camera's on, and then she turns it on, no doubt.
Yeah.
It was a joke backstage, and if you watch it, you can see how they dubbed my voice over the last scene. So I definitely did not ask her. I do not ask girls on first dates if they spit or swallow. It's not exactly my way of moving forward? I mean, it sounds like a pretty important question to know to move forward in a relationship, but
Of course.
it's not the first thing I ask.
Well, there you go. I'm going to take that out of my repertoire now, Luke. Thanks for that. Now, okay, let's get into this tap out round. So we're going to throw some fun questions at you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Here we go. Now, as an Adidas ambassador, give us your favorite Run DMC song.
As an Adidas ambassador, my favorite Run DMC song.
These are the tough questions, Luke.
These are the tough questions that throw me off right off the bat. My Adidas.
My Adidas, there you go. We're like the Lyoto Machida of tough questions, throwing everybody off. Here's an easy one, Luke. Blondes, brunettes, or redheads?
Brunettes. Redheads are kind of spicy, though.
Now, Luke, take us into the moment. What was it like having that 3x3 monster burger from In-N-Out after having to be on a diet for your fight with Lyoto Machida?
It's like pure heaven.
Luke, you said you were going to enjoy Australia after your win over Bisping. Did you stay a while? What was your most interesting experience in Oz?
I ended up staying a while. It was good times. I went for a surf. We were going to go for a surf. My buddy Paul Fisher and actually Joel Parkinson came pick me up. We were going to go surf, and then we ended up in Aruba. Too stormy, so we went to the bar and all the bra boys proceeded to fucking fill in one by one, and we had quite the day with a couple beers at the bar. So that was pretty interesting all there.
Oh, yeah, welcome to Australia.
We ended up going out at night, and hockey actually came out, and a bunch of guys with a Billabong team, and so it was an all-day affair, no doubt. It was fun.
I hope it lived up to that Simpsons episode where Bart owned that huge phone bill for calling Australia. Now, this is a developing story, Lou. Give us your reaction to when you heard about this whole Jon Jones hit and run incident that just transpired yesterday.
Wow, it's just unbelievable. I'm completely blown away by his actions and what he's done, and I just it's hard to really fathom what that whole sort of situation. It's just piece by piece, it just keeps getting worse and worse, and I just don't understand. The guy's got the world at his fingertips, and we just completely, I don't know what's going through the kid's head.
Yeah, it's a big shame. One of the last questions.
Yeah, and obviously I feel for the girl. It sounds like he's done for quite some time.
One of the last questions.
Maybe he gets away with it. I don't know. I'd be surprised in days.
We'll see. Could be a one-day jail stint. Now, Bob Sapp once told us about a time a naked lady jumped on the windscreen of his taxi in Japan. We would say you're slightly better looking than Bob Sapp. Have you had any crazy experiences or interactions with female fans?
I've it's hard for me to think about that, but I've heard so many Bob Sapp stories in Japan. That's all I can think about now.
I feel like there's some
Japan takes the cake. Japan, if I was, a big juiced up freaking beast in Japan, I don't know. They like their freak shows in Japan.
Yeah.
So many stories. That doesn't surprise me. I can't really think of anything off the top right now that I really want to drop.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to come out. This is going to come out in the Luke Rockhold documentary or autobiography one day. I think you're saving him from us. Now, we asked this from Rafael Dos Anjos when he was on the show last week, but obviously, as you know, there's a huge card planned for Melbourne in November, UFC 193. Any chance that you'd have any interest in, if you get a title shot, possibly having it here in Australia again? You've got a nice following down here.
I've heard about that card, and I've heard it's quite the venue they're looking at there. So it's an open door. I like Australia, and I would not mind it. I do like the sound of Madison Square Garden. With me and Weidman going to California, New York, Biggie, Tupac, East Coast, West Coast. But I do like the sound of 60,000 people.
Oh yeah, 56, about 56,000, 57.
I like trying to make history, and getting into arena that size sounds like another landmark, no doubt. That I'd be definitely into venturing.
Absolutely. Well, given that there may be even 2 title fights, we'd love to have you here for, a main event or even co-main event, depending what's happening. Now, Luke, the last question. Finally, give us the official prediction. If you do get Weidman next, how do you see yourself beating him? And also, between you and Jacare, why is it that you deserve the next title shot?
Probably Weidman, I believe I can outstrike him on the feet, and then I can make him pay, like I said earlier, for takedowns. I think I stop a lot of the takedowns, and this ends up being more stand-up battle, and I end up winning this thing on the feet. Jacare, I'm a better fighter than Jacare. I'm more dynamic on the feet. I'm a better wrestler, and I believe my MMA grappling is above his. And he's a great jiu-jitsu guy in his background. Everyone recognizes that, but my MMA grappling is better. I'm just a better fighter, and you'll soon find out.
Well, there you go.
It'll all play out until it's built. So whether it's now or later, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna find my way to the top.
Well, there you go, guys. Luke Rockhold on his way to becoming the next UFC champion. Don't forget us when you're one of the most successful champions in the history of the UFC, Luke. Remember us from Sydney, guys. You can follow Luke Rockhold on Twitter at Luke Rockhold. Very excited to see what plays out next, Luke. Thank you for taking some time and being on Submission Radio.
Thanks for having me. Always, definitely. Good to be here, and hopefully we can make it back to Melbourne one of these days.
What's up, fight fans? I'm the reason mixed martial arts is banned in New York, Tommy Toehold. And you're listening to Submission Radio. Let's do this shit!
All right, guys. On the episode today, we're a very, very special treat. Joining us is Karim Zidan, who's actually the associate editor for Bloody Elbow. You would have seen his articles around, and if you've been on our Twitter page, you would know that we're pretty big fans of the guy. His articles are always awesome to read. He's one of our favorites out there, and he's just done so much amazing work. He actually had a trip to Russia to cover M1 Challengers 56. That was the one with the medieval night fight. So there's a lot to chat about. But first, obviously, the big news that happened, Jon Jones, he was stripped of the title, suspended by the UFC. We haven't had a chance to chat about it, so we thought, hey, why not have a bit of a roundtable discussion, break it down between friends and share our opinions. Guys, Jon Jones, when you first saw what happened to him, I mean, I saw it on Twitter from Front Row Brian. He kind of overstated what happened. He said there was cocaine in the car, but nevertheless, he said there was a hit and run. Jon Jones fled the scene. When you guys saw the news, what was the first reaction that sort of went through your mind when you saw it?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, guys. I'm a huge fan, and yeah, I love working with you guys and all that stuff. So it's great to be on the show. And back to that point straight away about Jon Jones, the first thing that hit me when the news came out on Twitter with Front Row Brian was, oh no, if this is even the slightest bit true, we are in for one hell of a roller coaster. And that is exactly what happened. Not only was it slightly true, he was quite on the money with a lot of it there, and that's the scary part. It's one of those situations where you wish it didn't happen, but it's happened now, and it's a matter of how it's discussing now how the UFC's addressed it and the precedent they've set and how Jon Jones is going to deal with the situation over time. It's now become an internal struggle, and we're just going to have to let time go by and see what happens with him.
Yeah, look, I'm no hippie, but I like to sort of wish and hope that things are sort of peaceful and nice and everybody gets along and all this kind of stuff, even in the fight game. So when this originally happened, there weren't too many details, and I wasn't so much in denial as just hoping that, look, let's wait and see what all the details are all about. Maybe there's something more to the story. Maybe it wasn't as bad as we initially thought. And as the days progressed, it was even worse than we initially thought. There wasn't any cocaine in the car, or not that we know of, but it's just amazing that, I woke up Monday and I saw the news and there was a lot of speculation going on, and it was like, oh shit, here we go. And I think by like Wednesday night, he was stripped of his title, no more Reebok deal, and suspended by the UFC, and no longer even in the rankings. So to me, it's just insane how quickly things change. And I guess one of the things that a lot of people pointed out is with Jon Jones, he's got the world in his hands, and just like that, the wheels fell off the Jon Jones, the bus and the bandwagon. So to me, it's just crazy that it happened. I really wish it didn't happen, and I guess now I'm hoping that the judge is lenient on him. What about yourself, Dennis? What was your reaction when you first heard the news? Another Jon Jones, blunder.
Yeah, well, I was surprised because I'll be honest with you guys, Kareem and Casper. When I first saw the whole Bentley thing, when he crashed his Bentley, I wrote it off to, look, We've all been in car accidents before. I don't usually have a couple of good-looking women in the back of my car when these things happen. But, I've been in a couple of fender benders myself. So you write it off to, look, it's human nature and whatever. He's a young kid. He made a mistake. Then quite recently, obviously, this stuff happened around the cocaine. And Cass, you and me had a chat about it. Some people kind of reacted a bit negatively because we said, look, what he does in his spare time is sort of what he does. And people are very, very negative on him. Maybe he just made a mistake. But when I saw this news come out, I almost thought, I can't give him the benefit of the doubt anymore. There has to be something wrong going on in his life. I mean, when I saw the details, I thought, wow, like this isn't just a one-off situation anymore. There must be something going on, off the scenes with Jon Jones. I'm just wondering, with the situation, guys, obviously a lot has been made of the fact that he ran away from the scene, came back apparently to take money out of the car and stuff it into his pockets and leave again. He didn't take his marijuana. I believe there was some marijuana in the car. There was a pipe in the car. He didn't take that with him. Just wondering, do you guys think the situation could have been handled better by Jon Jones?
Well, there's no doubt about it. The simple fact that it was a hit and run is just not only does he get charged either with a misdemeanor or a felony, depending on how badly he's hurt the person, etc. It just looks terrible on him. And this is something that you saw consistently on Twitter. People asking the question is not only did Jon Jones get into the accident and then allegedly run off without checking on anybody else that got hurt. He came back, allegedly stuffed his pocket with cash, and ran off once again without checking. So he did this deliberately twice. You can give him the benefit of the doubt maybe the first time. The second time, he made a conscious decision to go back, apparently, to pick up money, not to check on the victim. And that really says something. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's something that did not sit very well with me.
Yeah, I think at this point it's rather comical, the fact that not only did it happen, but then he ran away and then he came back and he got the cash. I try and humanize the situation. I kind of think like, what if it happened to me, or what if it happened to you guys? I know that I would panic and I know I would freak out. And I think in Jon Jones's mind, the first thing that went through his mind was like, oh man, it's happened again. I've had such a string of bad luck and now this has happened. I think it might have been like a fight or flight risk. But then the other possibility, and this is just purely my speculation, I mean, what if he was on something? What if he was on some kind of drugs? Or what if he was drunk or something like that? He obviously wanted to run away to hide something. And then the fact that he came back and got the cash but he didn't get the marijuana, to me is really strange. Like, if you're gonna do it, why not take your cash, your marijuana, your pipe, and all the documents inside the car that has your identification in it? So I don't really understand his way of thinking, and it sort of says to me, if that's the way he's done it, he didn't really think through, and I'm sure he panicked. So in that sense, I do feel really bad for him. But I mean, hey, look, like Dennis said, we've all done stupid things, and I mean, I like to consider myself a good driver, but hey, I speed and I talk on the phone when I drive and things like that. One thing I don't run red lights. So whether Jon Jones just was careless or whether he was on something, I think that's a huge no-no. Not only that, but he's caused that big accident and seemingly doesn't care about the victims. I mean, that's just something, if you are in that kind of situation, he probably should have just faced the victims, spoken to them. He might have just been able to exchange details. It would have hit the media anyway. I don't know what he was thinking running away. The documents are in the car. The cops are going to come. It's going to be a far worse situation than if he just stayed. And I think given Jon Jones being a smart guy and very calculative in the way he does things, I don't think he thought this one through. And I think it reminds me of that situation with Lyoto Machida where he choked him unconscious and then Greg Jackson was saying, check on your opponent, get some fans. And Jon Jones often does things to appear like a good guy to the people, to the masses, to the media. And in this case, it's yet another blunder of Jon Jones showing, I don't want to say his true self, but I feel like Jon Jones is always trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and try so hard to have a certain image. Exactly like with the Lyoto Machida fight. He choked him out and Greg Jackson told him to go over, check on him to get some fans. He didn't check on Lyoto Machida because he cared. He checked on him to gain some fans. I feel like he's always doing something for a reason. Again, that's cool. But then when these things happen, you get into a hit and run and you abandon a pregnant chick with a broken arm, then it makes you look like a dick. And all of that image control kind of goes out the window. And, as far as this girl being pregnant, I mean, I feel really bad for her, and obviously she ended up with a broken arm. I don't think the pregnancy has anything to do with it. It's just unfortunate that she was pregnant, and it's a good thing that there were seemingly no complications to her pregnancy. That's definitely a plus. Whether she was pregnant or not, though, it doesn't matter. Hit and run is bad, and that's kind of what I'm questioning. Again, this is just speculation. This is just me throwing something out there. I have zero proof of anything, but to me, it just seems weird. You've got a rental car that's registered under your name, a simple search of whatever the license plate, and a call to the rental place, and they'll know, well, this is registered to Jon Jones. You're not fooling anyone. You're not going to get away with it regardless. But if you run away, you're going to make it a bigger deal. So there's got to be some reason why he ran away. And then there's people are saying, well, something was in his system. Maybe he was on drugs. I don't know, maybe. But it would make sense why he was so hard to find. If you've got a car that's registered to you, people are going to find out regardless what you did, and running away is really only just going to be a matter of time before you get caught. And of course, the media and everything like that is going to get involved. I mean, the only real upside to running away and leaving all your shit in the car is, well, the alcohol will wear off, or the drugs, or whatever will get out of my system. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, Cass. And hey, everybody listening that doesn't know, Casper's like the transporter when he drives. So believe me, the guy's like a multitasker. He can be like Homer Simpson, making a sandwich in a deep fryer, reading his phone and doing something else in the background, and still swerving around all the corners. But I mean, one of the points made, guys, and this was from Chael Sonnen and Front Row Brian, was if there was alcohol in his system, and this is all purely speculation, if he left to make sure the alcohol was out of his system, and also to delay the tests to see if he had weed in his system, because apparently, and Karim, I don't know if you know about this a bit more than I do, because this is obviously the American law system. I know you're in Canada, but you're a bit closer than we are. But apparently, if they do test you 12 hours later, it's a lot harder to prove that weed was the cause of the accident.
You know what? I do not want to speculate. This is not something I'm actually in any way an expert on. But it would make sense to me, and depending, because you wouldn't be expecting them to be going to the extent that they take a blood sample. So if you're expecting a urine test, I mean, any sort of delay at any point would be at least slightly beneficial, depending on how. I mean, you'd expect a simple test from the police too, so it's not going to be a detailed, even an athletic commission level one. So as far as I'm guessing in this sense, and this is why I said purely speculation on my part, it would be beneficial.
Yeah, I still think, yeah, okay, if he's going to run away and do that, I understand the logic behind it. I'm not saying it's a good decision, but I understand the logic behind it. But then why not take the marijuana? Why not take the pipe from the car? I feel like he ran back to his car and he took the wrong thing. He took the money, which I'm sure he's got a lot of, and he forgot the evidence. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's like killing someone, running back, hiding the gun, but the body's still there. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's a crazy one, and it's almost like a Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch or something. It's one of those kind of comical movies. Now, you guys mentioned Jon Jones obviously is feeling it right now. The UFC have stripped him of his title. They have suspended him. Just want to get your thoughts on what you guys think about what the UFC have done. Do you think they should have been stricter? Do you think they're on the money with what they've done? What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I'll tell you guys, actually, about a few hours before everything went down and Jon Jones got stripped of the title and the news broke that night, or at night at least, Eastern Standard Time on our side of the world. Sorry, guys. And before that, we had done a roundtable of sorts on Bloody Elbow, and I think it was pretty unanimous that no one believed there was any good to be like that would come from stripping Jon Jones of the title. All of us, including myself, believed it was more or less a symbolic gesture. If anything, it was built off all the other. It's like you're blaming him, or not blaming him. You're punishing him for all the other crimes you failed, or not the crimes, all the other mishaps or blunders that you failed to punish him properly for before. For the cocaine incident, for instance, for all sorts of things you didn't punish him for, you decided now's the time to set this precedent. Whether it's correct or incorrect, the UFC made a strong stand. That's no doubt about it. It was an interesting decision. I mean, he hasn't even gone through court yet. We don't know what's going to happen. As of now, officially, these are allegations. Yet the UFC wasted no time to, whatever the decision was, it feels like it's a symbolic gesture. One day he will come back if he deals with his issues, which you'd expect. This is not a story that's going to end terribly. He'll come back. he'll deal with his issues. And it seems to me if he wins the title again, it will be a case of forgiven and forgotten. So what does this really mean in the end? Have we truly set a precedent, or was the UFC, did the UFC feel like they had their backs against the wall and this was the correct decision? Or better yet, did they see this as a money-making option? What about the chase for the title when Jon Jones is back, and the story of him overcoming all sorts of issues, so and facing his demons and every cliche you can think of? All that's going to sell, and all the heat that comes from all his mistakes, all of that sells money. So it's going to sell pay-per-views, and I don't even know if that might be in their plan, but if someone did think about that, it's a smart business decision. It works. It sells. You have a new champion right now, and you're going to have who might be one day known as the greatest mixed martial arts fighter of all time, challenging and coming back to get what was his. It's a great story. So if that's what they planned, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the UFC felt the pressure. And like you said, after the last few times where Jon Jones made mistakes and the UFC, to the public's perception, didn't really do much to punish him, and I think the company took a hit. A lot of the blame fell on the UFC. Oh, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they favoring him? And I think they really wanted to change that perception and say to the people, you know what, you think we're favoring him? Well, we're going to strip him of the title, or we're going to suspend him indefinitely. And I think they want to distance themselves from Jon Jones a little bit, just while he goes through his court and things like that. And who knows, he may go to jail. I was just reading an article today, and an analyst, I believe, on Yahoo Sports was talking about he may be facing up to 2-3 years in jail. And I don't think the UFC really want to deal with that right now. But I fully agree with you, Karim. Dana White and the Fertitta brothers, they went down to Albuquerque. They had a chat with Jon Jones. Dana White said that it went very well. And I'm not the type of person to delve into conspiracies. I usually like to just look at all angles, but I think there's a very real possibility that they sat down, they said, all right, Jon, look, you know you're in a pickle. We need to handle this well from a PR perspective. We're gonna get rid of you for a bit. You're gonna lay low. All right, buddy, we're going to take away that title. I know you don't want to hear that, but then you're going to come back. We're going to market the crap out of this, and your big return's going to be huge. People won't. We're going to make it look like you're never going to fight again. We're not going to allude to you returning. We're going to say, look, maybe he won't return. Don't worry, buddy. You'll be back. You'll be back in year 2 or whatever, and then it's going to be huge, and you'll return to top form. So that's kind of my opinion on where they stand. But I think the UFC made the right decision in terms of the public perception, because previously I kind of think they looked like pushovers, basically because Jon Jones got away with anything and everything.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, guys. And just to further on your point, Cass, Dana White did say a lot of people know Jones had a lot of chances. This one was his last chance. He's got to handle his business outside the octagon, and then we'll see where he goes from there. It's like, Dana, who are you kidding? We know exactly where he's going from there, back into the main event of the UFC. But let's just finally, on Jon, just finally, what do you guys think in terms of his career? Because there's a couple of train of thoughts that have sort of been going through my head. He's in his prime. If he possibly does go to jail, like Casper mentioned, people are talking about the possibility of him going to jail for a bit. Obviously, he's going to be away dealing with some legal issues, personal issues. How do you guys think this will affect Jon on his level as a fighter? And do you think he still has the ability to come back stronger than ever, become that champion that he was, and be as dominant as he was in the division before this happened? Karim, what do you reckon?
Well, to be honest, I'm not quite sure. I know for a felony charge like this, the possibility is a sentence of something between 2 to 3 years. But I honestly believe some sort of settlements will be reached, either out of court, somehow, some sort of settlements will be reached, and that will potentially be dealt with. That's just the way I see that matter. But it will still, of course, it's still a situation he's going to have to deal with media-wise, his family, his friends. He's going to have to truly look at himself and figure this all out. But what I truly noticed was the fact that he was on his way to breaking Anderson Silva's title defense streak, and you didn't really see anyone in his path who was really going to stop him. And I don't mean Anthony Johnson wasn't potentially going to beat him, but you know what I mean. He seemed indestructible at this point, and now he's going to have to go back and start all over again. And I know these are numbers and records and whatnot, and in the bigger scheme of things, it might not mean too much. But one day we might look back and say, well, you know what, this record should have been this many wins. But another point I want to go back to, when you're talking about how he's going to approach this mentally when it comes to fight again. If you remember, when he tested positive for COVID, we found out after the fight, but I'm pretty sure he was notified before the fight. So he went into this knowing something was about to happen. He still fought the fight he did against Daniel Cormier. Honestly, the thing I'm least worried about is how Jon is going to approach the fight when he's back. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I very much agree with you, Karim. And I think as far as the streak and the records, when you mention him starting from the beginning, I do agree that that takes a big hit on him, because previously this big streak included names like Rampage Jackson and Shogun and Rashad and, so many great, Lyoto Machida. And now if he does come back, I mean, how is he going to continue that streak? And in MMA, there's so many asterisks, look at Fedor and how he was technically undefeated, but he did have that TKO stoppage. And even Jon Jones, technically he was undefeated, but he had that disqualification against Matt Hamill. So things like that are really annoying, because as the years progress, people forget about those things and they just look at the facts and the figures and they go, well, he did lose here and he did lose his title there. And I think with Jon Jones, it's like, for a long time, he was really trying to, in my opinion, emulate Bruce Lee, the way Bruce Lee was so wise and always had something smart to say, and just in general was a really, really likable guy. And over time, we found out that that just has not worked. I really think Jon Jones needs to embrace his heel role, because, I mean, last time I checked, Bruce Lee didn't have DUIs, he didn't crash his Bentley, and he didn't do things like that. I think a lot of people look up to Bruce Lee, and I very much... I can understand why people would want to be him. Hell, when I was a kid, I wanted to be like Bruce Lee. I used to believe in reincarnation. I used to think, man, I hope I'm like Chinese when I get reincarnated. All sorts of ridiculous things like that. Just because I thought Bruce Lee was that cool. But that's just a little something about me. But with Jon Jones, I think he's a fantastic fighter, but he's failed miserably at being the next Bruce Lee. He's going to be like the next Mike Tyson. And if he does go to jail, he's going to have to come back and really come back to form. I'm not worried about him in terms of the mental game. I think Jon Jones will be fine. Look at Floyd Mayweather. He went to jail, he came back, still fantastic. I think for me, the big question is, will he go to jail? How long will he be away from the cage and the UFC? And, if he goes to jail, I mean, that to me is crazy. And for every guy like, say, Mike Tyson who went to jail and Floyd Mayweather who went to jail, there's also Rampage Jackson who had a similar incident. I believe that was also a hit and run. And I believe in Rampage's case, there was also a lady who was pregnant. And I believe her pregnancy suffered complications. So, and he didn't go to jail, all was forgiven. I don't understand the legal system in America. I don't even understand the one in Australia. But I do believe it's a lot more serious if you do have priors, and Jon Jones does have priors. So people are talking about mandatory jail time. We'll see. The legal analysts are saying possibly 2 to 3 years, and he should probably do a plea to have it dropped.
Yeah, no, there's some interesting points there, guys. And I just want to come at it from a different perspective. I'd like to see Jon sort out whatever's going on in his life that's causing any of these issues. I know that with the cocaine thing, he went to rehab for a day and then left, and then was sort of, I don't know if it changed anything. So I'm hoping that this is going to be the wake-up call that Jon Jones needs, so that we can see Jon Jones live a good life, fix everything up in his personal life, so when he returns, and I'm sure, and Karim, I absolutely agree with you, I reckon mentally he'll be fine, but when he returns, all these issues will be behind him, and he's still not covering up the issues and pretending like everything is okay. I'm just hoping that he sorts everything out, and this is the wake-up call that he gets. But guys, I'm sort of out of topics to talk about. John, do you have any other last sort of comments that you want to round out the Jon Jones topic with?
I'm not quite sure what to add at this point, really, other than one day, no matter how his story ends, it's going to make for an interesting book at some point, when he's willing to actually come out and truly, when he's got, at that point, when the media pressure of the daily grind and being a champion or being a fighter or being he who everyone wants him to be basically is over, and he can just sit back and reflect on his life. It'll be interesting to read those words. That would interest me. I'm not much on reading generally any fighter autobiography or biography that comes out, but that would be interesting to me.
I hope that when Jon Jones does release a book, I hope he's like brutally honest. No trying to get fans, no trying to sway people's opinions. I hope he just tells it how it is. I hope he says exactly what he was thinking when he ran away from that hit and run and things like that. I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm a firm believer in nothing lasts forever, whether it's title reigns, glory, or even bad news or bad situations like this, it'll blow over, whether it's in a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 years, 8 years, whatever the case is. And if you sort of zoom out a little bit and look at the big picture, I don't think it's that bad for a career. There's a saying, and that's, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Look, Jon Jones is making it on the news. Obviously, it's not for good things. But once this blows over, people will still know his name. He'll return to glory. I guess look at Floyd Mayweather. Look at Mike Tyson. I mean, Mike Tyson at one point was one of the most hated men on the world. You know, he bit a guy's ear off. People were saying that he allegedly raped a girl. And now look at him. Everybody loves Mike Tyson. He's basically turned the masses, and he's one of the most loved guys ever. I think Jon Jones can do that as well. But I think for now, he needs to sort of be humble. And I think maybe for a while, he needs to approach the heel direction and just accept the fact that a lot of people don't like him right now.
Yeah, absolutely agree, guys. And hopefully when he does release that book, it's going to be a lot better than Brock Lesnar's book, where he basically actually wrote, hey, I'm not going to talk about that. So that's fine with me. And it was one of the most, I was so disappointed when I read his book that it actually, I still cry sometimes in the shower when I think about it. But yeah, I mean, Jon Jones did break a record of losing 2 major sponsorships 2 years in a row, first with Nike, now with Reebok. So records still being broken.
And others, Muscle Tech as well.
Muscle Tech. So, hey, that's got to be some kind of record. But, guys, we've also got Karim on the show because he has gone on another adventure to Russia. Now, Karim, you do the commentary for M1 Global. I believe you began doing it quite recently. Was your first one M1 Global Challenger 54? Was that your first gig over there?
That is it, exactly. That was my first gig. It was actually a joint collaboration. That event was a co-promotion between M1 Global and Absolute Combat Berkut, which was a Chechen promotion, actually, from the Chechen Republic. And that part, it's funny that I attended that event, because I believe had I not been at that specific event where I was surrounded by that many Chechens, I don't think I would have been inspired as I was to follow through on reading about Russia and learning about their fighters. To be honest, it's very interesting. And yeah, that was definitely my first event, and the commentary came out of the blues, actually. And I was meant to be on holiday in St. Petersburg. I'd always, all my life, wanted to go to St. Petersburg, and I finally decided to make the trip out there. And M1 graciously offered me a place to stay, and I decided that I was gonna see Russia from their perspective and covering MMA in Russia. So while I was there, I had the opportunity to interview M1 Global founder, Mr. Vadim Finkelstein, and he's an infamous man. I guess everyone knows him from the whole Fedor fiasco with Dana White. So that was fascinating to me, sitting down and getting to speak to him. I believe we sat down, we had tea, and we spoke, and the phone was just recording for about an hour and a bit. And we had a translator with us who happened to be the M1 Global Matchmaker as well. And at one point, Daria, who's their PR lady, she walked by, and they were speaking to each other in Russian. And at this point, I had no clue what was going on. And I heard my name get mentioned a couple of times, and then they both turned to me, and I was like, well, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, do you want to do something tomorrow night? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, are you interested in doing some commentary? One of our guys just can't make it to this trip. Something came up, and he's got something to do, and we need someone to cover if possible, and we'd like you to cover. We like your English. I'm like, well, sounds good to me. I'm like, give me a minute here, let me think about this. And it took me about seconds to be like, okay, you know what? I have no experience, but what the hell? Let's give this a try. And it was the matchmaker who was like, okay, I'm going to be your commentary partner tomorrow. And all we got to do, he's like, look, we've just been talking about fights, and we had just been sitting down for about 10 minutes talking about pride fights and whatnot and history of MMA and stuff. He's like, see, we're just going to do this tomorrow night. And he basically, it was as smooth as ever. And that was how I delved into commentary. It was just out of the blue.
Yeah, and obviously we read about these kind of experiences in the MMA Diaries, which is on Bloody Elbow. If you haven't checked them out, definitely do so. And the picture you painted, I mean, there was a point where you were having dinner by a fireplace, having Russian cuisine, you're talking to Vadim Finkelstein for a good hour, there's translators, he's ordering tea, you know, he's an incredibly powerful man. I mean, did it ever feel like you were in some kind of like international James Bond or spy movie? You're having dinner with the Russians, you know, and then someone comes over and like whispers to Vadim your name multiple times. Did you feel like there was a hit on you? He was about to say something like, no, Mr. Zidan, you know, and then like a hit squad comes in.
I'll tell you the first experience just landing in Russia. Here's how it starts. So I'll tell you how I got intimidated the second I landed in Russia and how that was erased a few minutes afterwards. So I arrive, and this is also in my diary entry. But I arrive and I'm going through to get to passport control. And I'm thinking, finally, I'm off the plane. And if anyone knows me, they know how much I'm not a fan of planes. I just don't like being in what I call a flying death tin, like sardine tin. And that's just exactly what it is to me. So I get to passport control and I hand them, I have my visa's complete and everything's good. So I hand them my passport, I hand them my papers where I'm staying and whatnot, the hotels and all the paperwork. They look at it and they just look and they start whispering to each other. And I see one of them get on a microphone, and then suddenly, before I know it, I'm surrounded by like 5 officers from the passport control thing. They're all questioning me and trying to speak in their broken English. They're like, "Why are you here? Why are you going back to Toronto?" They couldn't understand why I had arrived from Toronto and was going back to Toronto, yet I had an Egyptian passport. I'm like, "Oh, I see your problem." So I took out my residency card from Canada. As soon as they saw that card, their faces lit up. It was, "Welcome, how are you? This is all great. Here, take your paperwork. You're good to go. Welcome to Russia."
Wow.
And that was honestly the only intimidating scenario I was in. Other than that, honestly, every stereotype you can think of the Russians, think of every American movie you've seen, they are nothing like that. I couldn't believe it, which is what made it fascinating. Just walking down the streets and seeing them and talking to people and just everything, the way they spoke and the attitude they had was just nothing like any of these movies or these ideals we expected, or at least I was taught to believe about them.
What about the furry hat situation? You mean to tell us there was no furry hats?
I think I saw, apart from seeing like the guards at the Kremlin on my second trip, etc., wearing them, honestly, I think I saw 2 people wearing them, and one of them, I swear he was laughing and with a group of friends. I think it was a joke of some sort, maybe, but
Russians
no, I honestly
laughing.
didn't see it. Well, at least in these big cities, you have to understand. I was in St. Petersburg and Moscow, and those are, I guess, like the fashionable cities and stuff. You're not going to see them wear all the big heavy stuff over there, really.
Yeah, the stupid the fancy parts of Russia. Now, Karim, let's talk about your second trip over there, in particular your last couple of MMA diary entries. Tell us about your lunch with the victim of an MMA cult in Kiev. Now, before you talk about that, I have to tell you, I'm actually originally from Kiev. I was born there and I lived there for a bit before coming over to Australia. So when I read about this, I started questioning myself whether I was a part of a cult. So tell us a little bit about what happened with all that.
Well, that's extraordinary. It just goes to show you how small this world can be sometimes. But yes, I found this whole story fascinating. Just a few weeks before I went up to Moscow, I already knew I was going and whatnot. I got sent an email. It was more of a press release from M1 saying that they had interviewed this person named Konstantin Glukhov, and that he had a very interesting story about a sect and whatnot, and a sect that he had been in for 12 years. And I was thinking, what do you mean a sect? And I read the quotes, and the quotes were really interesting quotes, but nothing went really into detail about what was going on. So I published the first article. It did well. It did well on Bloody Elbow. People seemed to be very interested in what it was. So when I arrived in Moscow, I remember asking one of the M1 staff members, how do I get to sit down with this man and pick his brain for an hour? And they told me he would love to. This is something he's more than happy to talk about. It's not a sore topic for him or anything of the sort. So I'll let you guys in on something now, is that I'm actually planning my next long form entry is going to be about meeting him, and his whole story is going to be told in a long form that's coming out hopefully in the next month. So you'll get all those details in there, but I'll tell you right now what the experience I had with him when I was there, which is he's a giant of a man. So if you see him, he's a big fighter. He's a big heavyweight. His hand, and I mean, I'm 6'4", and I weigh about 180 something pounds, so I'm not exactly wide, but I'm tall, and I like to think I'm bigger than most people when I'm walking around, but he was a giant, and just when his hand engulfed mine, and it just wasn't fair. So I sat down, but as soon as you start speaking to him, he's all smiley and happy, and his wife was sitting at the table with us, and his training partner, who was there, who is a person he's known for years and years, who actually spoke fantastic English, so he made the whole experience far simpler for me. And his name was Igor, and it was just so easy to communicate with both of them. And he just went into this extraordinary story about how when Konstantin was younger and he was just really ambitious and wanted to become a heavyweight, he was just naive and willing to do whatever it took, and fell into the hands of a coach named Yuri. And this Yuri was fascinated by all sorts of philosophical ideals, and it's just... have you ever heard of a man named Carlos Castaneda? It's just that sort of psychedelic and psychological experiences. And he took those teachings and those learnings from the 60s, from that era, and seemed to have applied it to fighters. so that whenever he gave speeches, whenever he spoke to them, it was brainwashing and manipulation of sorts, the way he convinced them to be a part of his family. And he actually convinced Constantine to move away from his own family and to move in with the coach, to be taken in by the coach and his family. And those were the only people he was allowed to live with and be around. When they would take his purses, his fight purses that he'd win, and they'd give him allowances to live off. And the rest belonged to the coach. If he needed anything, he could come to the coach. The coach was, as he said, he'd always give me the quotation marks, like a father to him at the time. And it was just that sort of unhealthy relationship going on between them, where he was being taken advantage of, and all he wanted to do was fight and achieve what he believed he was capable of. And the coach kept telling him, well, if you stick with me, I'm going to teach you this, I'm going to teach you that, I'm going to get you into the UFC, we already did Pride, look what you did to Alexander Emelianenko, and et cetera, et cetera. And that sort of kept him around for a long time. And at one point, he actually tried to escape, or well, by escape, he means just leave and get up and leave. And once he did that and they figured out what he was doing, they actually took him away onto some island and kept him there for 3 months. And basically the way I was told it was that it was 3 months of brainwashing and beatings. So this was just an intense story, and by the end, the cult was just down to him. All their resources and everything was placed into Constantine. It was just down to him, and if he wasn't making any money, they were going to start threatening people and physically hurting people, and that's exactly what happened when he actually left 12 years later. He left, so the coach decided that he was going to go to everybody that Constantine knew and start threatening them. And Constantine still deals with this to this very day. So I was just sitting and listening to the story, and I couldn't believe what I was being told. I mean, some of the stories, and he starts naming all these incidents about gang fights he was forced into, and all sorts of ridiculous things. The coach basically convinced him that if you don't fight people on the streets, you can't prove yourself in the cage in the first place, and all sorts of ridiculous nonsense. And when Constantine would refuse to actually fight, they would pick the fight for him, because they knew the guys would go for the big guy first as a group. So they basically forced him to fight when he didn't want to fight. And to be honest, I would believe that because I met the man and I sat with him, and he does not seem like that sort of person. Quite the contrary, he even when he was speaking in Russian, because most of the time it had to be translated through Igor. When he was speaking in Russian, he would look me dead in the eyes, and he was smiling the whole time, and he seemed very comfortable and calm as he told the story. He had nothing to hide at that point. He basically, whatever question I asked him, he didn't feel offended. And you know me, when I get really interested with something like that, I really am going to start pecking at you and poking and really trying to get the information I want. And he did not resist in the slightest. And it honestly made for a fascinating story. I finished a transcription recently, and I cannot wait to publish a story like this, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we saw what you did with Ed O'Neill. I mean, that was a really great piece. For anyone who hasn't checked it out, definitely do so. So we can't wait to check this one out. And I think these things are more sort of prone to happening in parts of like the world and countries where success is really hard to come by, and people really have to struggle to really get anywhere in life. I also want to chat. There was a fan interaction with M1, and basically there was an event for fans to come down, and they were arm wrestling with the fighters, and if you beat the fighters, you'd get tickets to an event. It's not really something that you see the UFC doing at their access shows. What was that like? What was that experience like for you, Karim?
Well, it was really very, very, very interesting, because all I was told, Daria, the M1 PR lady, she came up to me when I came to Moscow. She's like, Karim, because I know she's well aware that I do these diary entries, so whenever there's any sort of adventure or the fighters are going anywhere, she always asks me if I want to join, just so that I have something else to write about, basically. So she kindly came and asked me if I wanted to join at this fancy mall they were going to, where they were going to meet the fighter and meet fans. And I was like, this is an opportunity to actually interact with some Russian fans. So we went, and we were seated in a nice cafe, and they fed us for a while, and you could really see what being around fighters for 4 or 5 days, you really start to understand how much they can eat. A fighter in his team, just one fighter in his team, the amount of food you can just, if you keep serving, I believe they had some sort of system going on where every time our table, because they only served all these very interesting appetizers from Uzbekistan at this place we were in. So every time the appetizers emptied on the plates, they just replaced it with a whole new round of appetizers. And as long as there were appetizers on this table, the fighters were basically going to go at them at some point. So it was just very interesting watching them eat and consume food when they were just waiting to do other things. It's just very interesting. And then when I arrived and I saw that the fans were there, at first it was just a regular fan interaction thing, and then they had some sort of MC who was speaking in Russian, and I remember being told that she wasn't really a part of M1, but that they had arranged that she was very good at what she does, and apparently they had reached some sort of deal where they were gonna have an arm wrestling thing, and this was very normal in Russia. I'm like, you know what? This doesn't seem like something they do in the States. They're like, why? I'm like, you never know if a fan could decide, oh, the fighter hurt me, I want to sue and whatnot. They're like, really? Sue? What is that? It's not like they didn't know what a lawsuit is, but it just baffled them, the idea that they could be sued for something like this. They're like, why? They want to arm wrestle. And you'd see the crowd, it's not like they were scared. And they brought the big fighters. They had Stefan Putz, who's their light heavyweight champion. He's a big guy. And anytime they'd say, oh, who wants to wrestle next? He had men and women raising their hands saying, we want to do it, we want to do it. And they did quite a few. And I believe the fighters were really like, they were sports. So they say they'd win one, they'd lose the second one at some point, something like that. I mean, you want to have the fans, you want the fans to get the tickets and whatnot, but everyone was having a laugh. I thought it was actually a really interesting way to interact with the fans. And you had some of them were really proud when they won. They're like, oh, I won, and I'm so happy. And you could just see it on the body language. I guess I couldn't understand the language, but I could get the body language, and they seemed very happy with it.
Wow,
it was
that
quite
sounds
an
like
experience.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome experience. Wow, that would be really interesting to see. Now, Karim, we really appreciate your time, and we know it's getting late over there, so we'll wrap it up with this one. Tell us a little bit about how is the state of MMA in Russia? Is it growing? Is it big? How is M1 Global going? Is it a sport that the people have really embraced? Because from where we are, it's really tough to determine how big MMA is in Russia.
And I don't blame you at all, because until I actually went to Russia the first time around, and even more the second time around, I would never have guessed. I would never have been able to estimate truly the impact of MMA in Russia. And now you can take it by regions. If you're talking about ethnic Russia generally and places like St. Petersburg and Moscow, etc., M1 rules in these regions, and M1 is the brand of Russia, and they've marketed themselves for Russian fans. That's their attention. If you watch their international broadcasts, which you can easily, they will have English commentary like I do, and they will have the names in English. But the feeds in general, especially the one in Russia, is tailor-made for Russian fans. Hence why they introduced things like night fighting, etc. They know how to win their own countrymen over, and that's exactly what they were able to do. So M1. Their business model works for them. As long as you're not competing directly with the UFC, I don't see why you can't hone your own business nationally and build it. But that's just M1. What's truly amazed me about Russia, which is why I believe I now decided to just cover Russian MMA in general, not just watch M1 Global fights, is because I couldn't believe how much it's expanded. When you think of regions like the North Caucasus, where places like Chechnya and Dagestan, where we know about Khabib Nurmagomedov, but there's about 100 other names that you have just never heard of yet, that once they get their opportunity, they're going to show up and they're going to really they're going to be embraced by the world, because it's their brand of combat sambo and judo and wrestling that's just it's exactly the foundation that's needed to compete with the current ones in the environment in the UFC. All they need is the equipment and the years of experience that American gyms have, which is why you end up seeing the best ones like Adlan Amagov at his time, who's now a retired, go to Greg Jackson, and you see Khabib and Islam Makhachev, who's also going to be on the UFC 187 card. Well, sadly, Khabib's no longer on the card, but Islam will. They all went out to AKA, and it's very important that they do that, because they already have the necessary foundation and the basis to really be successful, and the talent. When you see how many fighters go into sports in Russia, it's extraordinary, because a lot of these sports, a lot of combat sports, are state funded and sponsored by really, really wealthy people, especially in places like Dagestan and Chechnya. Really wealthy people sponsor them. So if you see gold medal wrestlers, you wouldn't be surprised if they'd be driving cars like a Bentley, because whilst those people might not be making money in the United States, and they might end up being a high school wrestling coach, in Dagestan, those are national heroes. They're absolute national heroes. So it's the market is so competitive for combat sports that you'll find that even the best talent might not necessarily ever transition to MMA. That's the truth of it. But the ones that are there, it's so competitive just to pick out the ones who are going to go to the UFC. Like when people ask me, Karim, what do you think of the UFC, the Russian fighters in the UFC? My answer is the best Russian fighters are yet to join the UFC.
That's crazy. Well, the way you speak of how successful people can be in Russia just based off athletics and even wrestling, it's good to know that Jon Jones does have a future. If he can't make it in the UFC, he can go to Russia and he can get
Well,
another
you can
Bentley.
find a video online of him actually when he went on some sort of visit to Russia a couple of years ago and to Dagestan. I think it was on an exchange with, because a few of his teammates, like Greg Jackson, like Ruslan Khabilov and whatnot, are part of that team. So at least at that point, he made some sort of trip out there. And I'm sure if you search Jon Jones Dagestan online, you'll be able to find a video of him dancing on a car in Dagestan to the applause from the Russians. They absolutely adore him, by the way. Jon Jones is huge in Russia. So when they might not know most UFC fighters, they're well acquainted with M1 fighters and Fight Night and Pro FC and all these other promotions in Russia. They will always be like, oh, but Jon Jones the best. That's the automatic answer. Never Anderson Silva. It was always Jon Jones.
Wow. And you know what? They're not exactly wrong. I think you've single-handedly gotten us really excited for Russian MMA in general. I think next time we have you on, we'll probably have to chat about the night fighting and all that kind of stuff. We really appreciate you jumping on the show, Karim. You know, we always read your articles, and if you don't, definitely check out Karim's articles on Bloody Elbow. Fantastic piece with Ed O'Neill, and there was also that piece you did with Khabib Nurmagomedov's dad, which covered a lot of things about Russian MMA. Great to have you on the show. We're glad. We're not going to lie, we're envious that you had these awesome trips to Russia and hung out with Cody McKenzie and got treated like an international man of mystery. And we're glad that you didn't end up handcuffed to a table with a big laser beam over you, cutting the table in half. Glad to hear that you're back.
That happened. I'm all good. We're still in one piece and safe here in Toronto right now. Almost a little too safe, you know. I want to be traveling a little more again.
Yeah, go back to Russia where it's dangerous, Karim.
But honestly, guys, thank you very, very much for having me on like Dancing Cast. But honestly, you know, I'm a huge fan of the show. I listen every week, and it's a pleasure to be on, honestly, guys. Keep up the fantastic work.
Thanks so much, Karim. Guys, we'll be back right after this with some more chat about Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather.
Hey, this is the Ultimate Fighter 17 winner, Kelvin Gastelum. You're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, we hope you're enjoying the show so far. That was the one and only Karim Zidan from Bloody Elbow. Really, really awesome for us to have him on. We hope you enjoyed those stories. We definitely had a lot of fun chatting to him. Now, I know the show's been running for quite a while, so we're going to quickly talk about Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather. Obviously, the biggest fight of the century is what they're calling it. Everybody's talking about it. I don't know what anyone else was doing this Sunday here in Australia. Obviously, Saturday night in most of the other parts of the world. But we figured, of course, even though we do MMA, we have to talk about this fight. Before we talk about the fight itself, I know a lot of people are a little bit miffed on the decision. A lot of people thought Pacquiao won. Then there's a lot of people who thought Mayweather won. I want to talk about the event, the spectacle itself, because it really was a big deal in terms of the ticket sales and the prices for the tickets, and just it did have that big event feel. Dennis, what did you think of the event itself? What did you feel when you were watching this pay-per-view?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that, Cass, because I haven't felt a fight of this magnitude in boxing since Mayweather fought De La Hoya in 2004. Fight that we watched together, and that was really fun to watch. I really missed that big feel, that big fight feel that really hasn't happened in a really, really, really long time in boxing. So when I began watching the event, the crowd, the atmosphere, the build-up, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Now, the royal baby was born, so I was a little bit disappointed because over the radio and the TV, they sort of focused on that, and you didn't get as much coverage for the Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather fight as I'd like. I found myself having to go online and, you know, watch some of the countdowns and some of the stuff that HBO and Showtime were doing. But so in that regard, I was a little bit disappointed because I felt like, you know, it was a lot of talk about, the royal baby's born. What's the royal baby doing now? Is she sleeping? Is she awake? There's a guy outside the gate 5 hours after she was born, just standing there for some reason. He's going to report something that no one cares about.
Jesus.
So, and then it was almost embarrassing listening to him talk about this baby. And I wanted to hear about the Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao fight. So in that regard, I was a little bit disappointed by the Australian media for not focusing on it as much as they should have. But I loved the coverage that HBO and Showtime did. Floyd Mayweather, as always, provides himself for as many interviews as people would like to hear from him, which I really enjoy. I love the way boxing promotes their fights. I mean, obviously, the UFC took a lot of their stuff away from boxing with the 24/7s and stuff like that. I thought they did a really, really good job. It really, really got me hyped up. Obviously, I'm more of an MMA fan than a boxing fan, but I really got into it, really got hyped up. And then when we were there watching with the people, This time around, we watched it with the people at the bar, which is the way I like it, because I like to be with the people. You get the best reactions and you get the best atmosphere when you're around other people who are there to watch the fight. When I was there at the pub, I got really, really excited. And even the fights before the fight happened, the Ukrainian defeating, now I forget, I think it was a Latino fighter. There was a very, very good fight. There were a couple of really good fights going. So it was a fantastic atmosphere. It really brought me back to that big fight feeling. I really, really, really enjoyed it. How about you, Cass? What did you think of the atmosphere leading into this one?
Yeah, man, speaking of Australian media, I feel like the Australian media are a bunch of idiots. They talk about a lot of things that people don't care about. I know there's people that care about the royal baby, but I just feel like they missed the
whole
mark.
Thing, everything is just about the royal baby, and it's just ridiculous because it's like an outdated thing where, you know, Australia was obviously colonized by England, but we're a completely different country now, and the young generation does not want to hear about this baby 24/7. I feel like all my frustrations just coming out in this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you got Mayweather, Pacquiao. This thing's been planned for a lot longer than this royal baby, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. The baby will be around tomorrow. You know, the fight's already happened. It's all over. It's all done. I don't want to hear about what socks the baby's wearing, what the baby's doing, and things like that. I'm a 26-year-old man. I feel like I'm far too young for kids anyway, so that's the last thing that I want to hear about. But look, whatever. I agree with you. The coverage for Manny Pacquiao has been fantastic. Anybody and everybody who's anybody has been talking about this fight. You can see it all over Facebook, Twitter. You know, even MMA websites are just blowing up with stuff all about this fight, which I really appreciated. There were so many countdowns and things. Luke Thomas, Superbeard Luke Thomas, actually did a really, really good thing on, I believe it was the MMA Nation YouTube, and it was kind of like, it was a really short little presentation. I think it was about 10 minutes long, 9 minutes long, and it was about just the history of Manny Pacquiao, and it really broke it down for layman's, you know, such as myself, because I'm not the biggest boxing fan. I don't have anything against boxing, but my expertise, for lack of a better term, I'm not an expert, but my passion, I guess, is more for mixed martial arts. So as far as us talking about this whole thing, I'm really just talking about a more sort of color commentary thing. I'm not going to give you the specific breakdown and analysis, because I'm not a boxing expert, and I'm not the biggest boxing fan either. But as far as the spectacle, I mean, this definitely felt huge. A lot of people were saying they didn't appreciate how many celebrities they kept panning to. I thought it was a good thing because it really just showed off. Yeah, I thought it was a good thing. Of course, he showed the celebrities. I know that they showed a lot of them, and it felt like any celebrity that was there, they sort of stopped on them. And with the UFC, you only get like 2-3 per actual pay-per-view. But I think that was very important because this is like a cultural event. It was a huge deal. Clearly eclipsed anything that UFC has ever done, despite what Dana White would tell you. And I mean, he's going on saying that Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, it's no Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo. Well, I'm curious to know how he means that. I mean, the fight may be more entertaining, but as far as the magnitude goes, this fight, Manny Pacquiao Mayweather, clearly eclipses that. I like seeing all the celebrities there. It makes me feel good that obviously a lot of other people care about this. Sometimes it's a little bit lonely in the world of MMA. I love the fans, I love the journalists, but sometimes it's like, oh man, what a sick fight, what a great pay-per-view. And then you go out into the streets and you got to talk about it with people, and you're like, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? Did you see Weidman beat Silva? And sometimes you just get a lot of blank stares, like, I have no idea who or what you're talking about. So it's good to see, yeah, you know, you feel a bit shitty. So it's good to see so many people getting into it. I like the big fight feel. I probably could have done with a few less national anthems. I think I counted a total of 63.5 national anthems. And then, of course, the fight, by the time it started, I normally, if you've heard me say it before, I like to watch fights like pay-per-view sort of in a quiet room. I like to just wake up, watch it on pay-per-view order, and then analyze the fights. This time, I met old Dennis and the rest of the Submission Radio crew and the boys. We went to a pub or like a sports bar. We watched it, and you know what? It was a great atmosphere there. Everyone was pretty restless, but I got there at about 1 p.m. I was running late, and the fight didn't start till 2. And 1 p.m. is when the fight was supposed to start. So we had plenty of time to sort of. It was obviously extremely delayed, and you could see the crowd was getting restless. And I remember I said to Dennis, I said, man, these people are expecting a fight. They're going to be really disappointed because they're all half cut and half drunk. They're going to be pretty disappointed once they realize the kind of fighter that Mayweather is. You know, he's a very technical guy. So, but as far as everything else, I mean, Jimmy Kimmel walking out dressed as Justin Bieber, the Burger King guy walking out behind Mayweather.
I wanted that to be Justin Bieber. I wanted Justin Bieber to be dressed as the Burger King guy and then take the Burger King mask off and bang.
Bam!
Justin Bieber.
It was me all along, yeah. And then you had like Michael Buffer and Jimmy Lennon Jr. They kept switching,
Man.
and that was a bit awkward. Jimmy Lennon Jr. I don't know. I was really hoping that Michael Buffer would do a majority of the announcing.
He's not in the same league as Michael Buffer, in my opinion. Michael Buffer just has it. Although he sounded like he was a little bit asleep in some.
Michael Buffer,
yeah. Sometimes when he was announcing, and it's like, come on, Michael. It's only the fight of the century. Why don't you perk up a bit?
That's the one. Yeah. That's exactly what you said. He said he looked like he just woke up. Let's talk about the actual fight itself. A lot of people are discussing it. There's a lot of people out there saying that they think Pacquiao won. I just want to say, in the lead up to this whole thing, a lot of the predictions, obviously, we're frequenting sites like Bloody Elbow and MMA Mania, and of course checking out Bad Left Hook. They're all part of the SB Nation family, and they're doing the fighter and combat sport professionals predictions. And one thing I noticed, a lot of the people who were picking Manny Pacquiao, because he was the crowd favorite, a lot of people were booing Floyd Mayweather. There's a lot of people that don't like Floyd Mayweather. I don't dislike the guy. I don't necessarily identify with him. And I wanted Manny Pacquiao to win. A lot of the people that were picking Manny Pacquiao were saying it for more emotional reasons rather than anything analytical. Like Alistair Overeem was saying how he thinks Manny Pacquiao will win because he's a good guy and he likes his attitude and he's very humble. I mean, that's great. It's all well and good to go for him, but I just found that the majority of people who were picking Manny Pacquiao weren't going for him or weren't picking him for any technical reason. It was purely just because they liked him more. So in terms of the actual fight and how it turned out, what did you think, Dennis?
Well, you know what? I'm just going to go back to something that you said. People that are boxing enthusiasts that know Mayweather's style sort of predicted this fight in a negative way, which was that this was not going to be an exciting fight, that Mayweather was going to dominate with his counter boxing, and it's just not going to be as much of a spectacle as it's being built up to be. And, you know, myself watching many Mayweather fights before, you know, I agreed with a lot of that statement. Now, a lot of people wanted Manny Pacquiao to win because he's such a loved boxer, but although like yourself, I'm not a big fan of Floyd Mayweather, so I was going for Pacquiao, but I knew that Mayweather would beat him. I just didn't see any way that he could beat Mayweather. Now, when it comes to this fight, I thought that a lot of credit has to go to Manny Pacquiao because he really brought the fight to Floyd Mayweather. A lot of other fighters could have just hung back there and just sort of lost that decision. I feel like Manny Pacquiao really went in there. He really worked hard. He tried to break down, get into that area where he can throw his punches, throw those flurries. Unfortunately, Mayweather blocked a lot of those flurries, but I just thought at least Manny Pacquiao's trying something. And there's a few rounds that he actually won, and there's a few punches that he landed on Mayweather that Mayweather didn't really expect, and we saw his father sort of telling him to come out in the next round a bit better than that. I thought the fight itself was a lot more exciting than I thought it was going to be. I was pleasantly surprised. Like I said, I think a lot of it goes to Manny Pacquiao for the fact that he really went for it. And at the end of the day, Manny Pacquiao just couldn't get the job done. Floyd Mayweather, a lot of people boo him. A lot of people don't like him. But unfortunately, for those people, when it comes to boxing and counterboxing, he is one of the greatest of all time. And he proved that today. His style may not be very exciting. His style may not deliver KOs. But in the game of boxing, he's excellent at what he does. So I know a lot of people are out there saying, oh, Mayweather ran from the whole fight, or Mayweather, you know, he didn't look like he was going to finish Pacquiao. But if you watch the fight again, you'll see that all of Mayweather's punches landed. Well, not all of them, but a lot of the punches that he threw, they were very accurate. He landed a lot of punches. Unfortunately, Manny Pacquiao, most of his punches were blocked. He didn't land as many punches as Mayweather. Mayweather, he was just very, very dominant. Some rounds, like the first two rounds and other rounds in the fight, you know, it was just sort of Mayweather's game. And again, Manny Pacquiao, he did the best that he could. A lot of people have a debate saying that maybe 5 years ago, Manny Pacquiao, he was a lot quicker, he had a better reaction time, and he put together quicker and better combinations, and maybe he would have edged out those rounds that today he lost. Well, you know, I don't know what would have happened 5 years ago. You know, it's up for discussion. But at the end of the day, Floyd Mayweather, you know, he put in another great performance. And the other thing I'm happy about is he will be having his last fight in September, which is, I think, the right thing to do. At 38 years old, it's great to see a guy go out on top. I don't think he's got that much left to prove. But overall, you know, another impressive performance from Floyd Mayweather. But my hat goes off to Manny Pacquiao for not just hanging back there, but for going for it and trying to make the fight exciting. At the end of the day, I was impressed with the fight. I thought it was very exciting in a lot of parts. And you and me, Cass, and the people at the good old bar that we watched it at, we were going crazy some parts. So it delivered that feel for me that, hey, maybe something special is going to happen, and didn't, but I still got that feeling. So I know a lot of people are saying, look, we paid this much money for the fight and we expected a lot more from it. But I honestly think that a lot of people did get banged for their buck. If I missed this fight and I didn't watch it live, I would have been genuinely disappointed, because I would have missed a lot of great moments and a lot of great sort of emotions by missing out on this fight and watching it live with the people. What about you, Cass? What did you think about it?
Like I said, it's a cultural event. If I was around for Ali, Frazier, and all these other classic fights in the 80s, I was born in 89, so I pretty much missed most of that good stuff. And to be honest, I was too young to appreciate Tyson anyway. So this fight was something that made me excited just to be a part of it, just to be able to say, hey, I watched it live. And also, when you've got such a build-up, there is excitement even in the little things. So I think it also depends on where you watch this fight. Us being in a big bar where everybody was getting excited and it was largely fairly quiet, you could hear the commentary very well unless Manny Pacquiao was connecting, and then it was almost deafening. It was a very, very pro-Pacquiao crowd. I think as far as Pacquiao's performance, look, he really came in and he brought it to Mayweather. He definitely did try and make the fight exciting. He came to fight. Mayweather was the technician. I think when you break down the term sweet science and when you look at boxing, the main goal is to hit and not get hit. And I think that's what Mayweather definitely did. He dodged a lot of punches. He got in his own punches. His ones were cleaner and more accurate. And Manny Pacquiao definitely clocked him with some good shots. He hurt him. He didn't have him really rocked. He definitely got his attention, though, but when that happened, Mayweather would go against the ropes, he'd hang back, and then Pacquiao would start throwing flurries. Now, to the naked eye, and obviously everyone in the bar, everyone was getting excited, thinking that he was going to get some kind of finish. Look, Floyd Mayweather was very calm, very much conscious, and very much in control during those situations. And most of those punches that Manny Pacquiao was throwing in those flurries were hitting either the forearms or the gloves, and not really many, if any, were getting through at all. So even though there was excitement in those shots, I don't think that that's enough to give Manny Pacquiao the decision. There was obvious the height advantage, the reach advantage, and Floyd being just such an accurate guy and having such great defense, the shoulder rolls, just such a very, very, very smart and defensive boxer. Like yourself, I really did expect Floyd Mayweather to win this fight, and that's pretty much exactly what happened. I don't really know how people scored the fight for Manny Pacquiao. I just think his defense is very few and far in between. One thing, though, about Manny Pacquiao, even though I think he brought it in this fight, I don't think it's the same Manny Pacquiao that we're used to seeing. With Manny Pacquiao, he's known for having these crazy angles, these crazy combinations, fantastic footwork, and I just didn't see enough of it in this fight. I mean, I didn't see the crazy angles at all. I didn't see any crazy combinations either, and we found out that Manny Pacquiao actually had a shoulder injury. I believe it was a torn tendon. So, and he was actually under treatment leading up into this fight. So he was actually getting injections to ease him with the pain. And in the locker room prior to the fight, they denied him those injections. So he went in there a little bit injured. Obviously, you can't back out of the fight now. It's just too huge. There's too much money invested. I think if either one of those guys had a broken leg, they probably still would have had to fight. But I think this was a clear win for Mayweather. I enjoyed the fight. I think there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of drama. The times that Pacquiao did connect and have Mayweather against the ropes, it was really exciting. When he had him cornered, I mean, the crowd in the bar was going nuts. And I think in a fight like this, it's almost like there's a string and it's just pulled to its maximum tension. And you feel like any tug of that string and the string might break. And as an analogy, that would mean that it would be the knockout. So you really felt like anything could happen in this fight. But yeah, look, all in all, clearly dominant decision for Mayweather. And I've actually got the final fight stats here. I've got a card I'm looking at it. Somebody posted up on Twitter. CompuBox. They're the ones who have the final fight stats. Mayweather. Total punches thrown 435. Pacquiao 429. So 6 more for Mayweather. Total punches landed 148 for Mayweather. Pacquiao 81. That's, I don't know, 60-something more to Mayweather.
Huge difference.
Jabs thrown, 267 to Mayweather, Pacquiao 193. That's almost 70 difference. 67 landed for Mayweather, 18 jabs only landed for Pacquiao. That's a huge difference. Power punches, 168 to Mayweather. Pacquiao actually threw much more, 236. Power punches landed, 81 for Mayweather, 63 for Pacquiao. So the connect ratio is 48% for Mayweather in the power punches and 27 for Pacquiao. Now, average per round for all you stat freaks, Pacquiao was averaging 6 out of every 35 shots thrown, and Mayweather 12 out of every 36. So to the naked eye, and like I've said before, I'm a layman when it comes to boxing. I think a lot of the nuances, the subtle things really go over my head. But you could clearly see Mayweather was really picking his shots, evading most of Manny Pacquiao's offense. Manny Pacquiao was hitting a lot of air and then coming off with some decent shots. That reach was just way too much for Manny Pacquiao to overcome in a lot of cases, and he was finding it very, very hard to get on the inside.
Yeah, that's right. And also very off-balanced after he threw his flurries. So, yeah, just a few things there. And I know a lot of people are saying, look, Mayweather ran for the whole fight. But at the end of the day, when you talk about what boxing is and the rules and how it's scored, Mayweather put in a flawless performance. However, I think Manny Pacquiao, he's still got fans all over the world. If not, he's won even more fans over. And people love him just as much, if not more, after this fight. So both guys walking away. And yeah, like you said, Cass, a great fight. Now, a lot of people had things to tweet after this fight, Cass. I'm just going to read out a few tweets from some good old celebrities about what they thought of the fight or comments about the fight after the fight happened.
Was it Mark Wahlberg saying, I can't believe I just lost 250 grand?
I don't know. Hopefully they paid him that money to make that crappy little video before the fight happened. If anybody phoned anything in, it was P. Diddy. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But all right, so we've got Oscar De La Hoya saying, sorry, boxing fans. That's what he tweeted out. Sean Strickland saying boxing has officially died. RIP, hashtag boxing. Lorenzo Fertitta said, ordered a steak and got a salad. Hashtag Maypac. Will Brooks, Bellator champion, obviously said the fans can boo Floyd all they want, but you can't deny the work. So an honest opinion there from Will Brooks. Cub Swanson said, safe to call that the build-up of the century and not the fight of the century. Like Casper mentioned, a lot of people felt a little bit disappointed with the fight. Jared Rochold said, and that's why UFC's taking over. Now, a lot of people, and especially MMA fans, were that are used to watching MMA, were a little bit not used to seeing guys try to take each other down in 12 rounds in that kind of format. And I completely understand because I don't watch that much boxing, and I was at times a little bored with some of the other fighters on the card. Oscar De La Hoya also tweeted out, call me old school, but I like the fans getting their money's worth by watching an action-packed fight. So another opinion there for Oscar De La Hoya. And finally, one from Conor McGregor that felt more like a business transaction than a fight. Respect to Floyd, though. Boxing is not the style of fighting to stop him. So there you go.
I've just got a few quick ones as well, all right? And this is more from the MMA community. Eddie Bravo, as a former boxing fanatic, this was the last nail on the coffin for me. I would rather watch preseason midget slam ball in the snow. Youch. Elias Theodore, he's a funny guy. I don't know. I thought Floyd's toughest fight was still against the Big Show. Never forget.
Yeah, he broke Big Show's nose.
Quality tweet. Shayna Baszler. And this is something that a lot of MMA fans can relate to because there was so many times where, in the clinch, I'm sure a lot of MMA fans are going, take down, knee, guillotine. Shayna Baszler said Mayweather landed more strikes and also had more submission attempts, guillotine. And Michael Bisping said Max Kellerman is a bit of a prick with Manny.
Wow.
Yeah, and what about Max Kellerman's post-fight interview with Manny Pacquiao? Absolutely grilled him. Why? Why didn't you win the fight?
I didn't like that. It was too much for me. I know he was trying to ask the tough questions, but I think he just kind of came off like a jerk in that interview, and it just went too far into certain parts. Now, I like the guy that interviewed Floyd Mayweather. I like the way he interviewed him. He really did get some stuff out of him. But yeah, I did not enjoy that interview with Manny Pacquiao. I almost felt sorry for him in certain parts of that interview.
Yeah, man, I don't know much about Max Kellerman, but that was pretty rough. And I feel like there was also a language barrier. Like, Max Kellerman was asking a lot of really tough questions, and I don't think Manny Pacquiao could vocalize what he was thinking at that moment. Not only the language barrier, coupled with the fact that he would have been going through a lot of things emotionally at that moment. Obviously, he thought he won the fight. I understand that Max Kellerman and a lot of people thought that he lost the fight, but it was very much a case of, now, Manny, I thought you lost. Everybody else thought you lost. Why did you do this? Why didn't you do that? You knew this was going to happen in the fight. I think to boxing enthusiasts, I think a lot of people were just baffled at what they saw from Manny Pacquiao. Yeah, he brought the fight, but not in his usual self. He wasn't the Manny Pacquiao that a lot of people expect. And I think a lot of boxing fans just didn't understand that and wanted the answers. So, look, still respect to Max Kellerman, but I definitely understand where Michael Bisping was coming from in calling him a prick.
Yeah, exactly right. And, a lot of fans are saying it's not the same Manny Pacquiao, but it's also a lot of credit goes to Floyd Mayweather for being able to make Manny Pacquiao look like that. So just so many factors going into it. Now, Cass, one last thing I want to have a chat with you about and get your opinion on before we finish up this amazing episode of Submission Radio. Man, it's been a huge episode. A lot of fun things happened on this episode. Obviously, this commentary, RIP boxing, boxing's dead. This is the end of boxing. The thought comes from the fact, obviously, that Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao are the two last mainstream names in boxing that can make the world stop and that really create that big fight feel. Obviously, there's a lot of great ones, Klitschko, a lot of other guys that really boxing purists watch. But from a casual standpoint, something that's going to be covered by everybody, guys like Tyson, Muhammad Ali, those are the last couple of guys that are around. So a lot of people are saying, well, we feel like boxing is dead because now that Floyd Mayweather is retiring, and this is sort of the last big super fight, we just don't see any big names or big fights happening in boxing anytime too soon. Just wondering, what do you think about that, Cass? Do you think boxing is really sort of at its lowest peak now that this fight is done?
I think in terms of boxing, a lot of the excitement in boxing in the last few years was partially the fact that, we're watching all these fights in hopes that eventually we will get Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. And I think that's kind of a reason why a lot of people were sticking around. But, it's kind of like with Anderson Silva and GSP and a lot of these big names disappearing. And I think even UFC and MMA is kind of struggling in the same way. Thank God for people like Conor McGregor and Paige Van Zandt coming into the mix. But yeah, boxing is pretty low on stars. And that's the thing, if you lose Mayweather and you lose Pacquiao, those are two of the biggest stars in the sport today. If you're not talking about, say, the Klitschkos, one Klitschko at the moment, I think that's a huge hit for boxing. I wouldn't necessarily say boxing's dead because you never know when a star is going to come around the corner. But yeah, arguably their two biggest stars are going to be gone very soon, especially after September. And I just want to add to that on this point. A lot of MMA fighters are saying things very pro-MMA and pro-UFC and very anti-boxing and saying things like, this is why UFC is great, this is why MMA is great, I'd rather watch MMA fights. Look, that's all well and good. And I don't really want to sit here and pick sides. Obviously, I find MMA more interesting. It's nothing to do with me being against boxing. That's just my cup of tea. Some people like football, some people like soccer, some people like NFL rugby. That's all good. But it's kind of hard to say, well, it's kind of hard to sit here and say, oh, look, there was such a big lead up. The fight wasn't what I expected. Now, all of a sudden, boxing sucks. I mean, well, okay, there was a huge lead up to Anderson Silva and Nick Diaz. People didn't love that fight. You can't all of a sudden say, well, MMA is the greatest and it's much better than boxing. And then there's cards like UFC Poland, which was almost unanimously hated. So I don't think this is really as much of a win for MMA as a lot of people think. All in all, I enjoyed this fight. I don't know if this is the nail in the coffin, to be honest. I know that a lot of ex-boxing guys are moving over to MMA now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously Floyd Mayweather's name was created by Oscar De La Hoya when he beat him. Huge names are created when a guy beats a Mayweather or a guy beats a Pacquiao. That's how a lot of the big names are created, and that's why their divisions have the biggest names, because those are the guys that have fought them previously, and people that have played boxing games, for example, will see the most depth in those divisions and recognize the most names in those divisions because those are the guys that have fought the guys previously. So I don't see anybody being fast-tracked to superstardom anytime too soon unless somehow Floyd Mayweather gets beaten in his last fight in September and that guy becomes the new huge star and he passes on the torch like Oscar De La Hoya did to him. But, you just never know what's around the corner. I know right now it looks a little bit grim in terms of superstars and guys that will make us, really interested in watching them. And especially because in boxing, guys really have to be undefeated to build that momentum. And sometimes you have to have a good 20 or 30 fights before someone will take you seriously. But, I strongly believe, just like in any other sport, there will be someone that comes in, takes that name and tries to take boxing to the next level. And let's hope that it's someone in the heavyweight division, because I love the old school days of the Muhammad Alis, the Lennox Lewis's, the Mike Tysons. So I'd love to see that division get big again. But we'll just have to wait and see. Nevertheless, I still think it was a great moment in boxing. And much like yourself, Casper, I'm just very happy we were able to share it.
Yeah, and with your last part, I guess what you're saying is to be the man, you got to beat the man. And if no one beats the man in Pacquiao or Mayweather, which is funny because, it's almost like you had two of the men fighting and one of them beat each other, so no one's really progressing as a breakout star. But unless you beat that big star, it's almost like Mayweather's going to retire. He's going to retire undefeated, and no one's beaten him. Therefore, there's no one else, passing that torch. Would that be correct?
Yes, a lot like that. And obviously, Manny Pacquiao got beat, so he lost and passed on the torch in that way. And a lot of the time, they just passed on the torch, Cass, by just fighting guys and beating them. Guys like Cotto and Mosley and a lot of those other guys in the division that everybody knows their name. That's just because they've actually fought those guys and lost. So, I mean, that was a quick sort of ascension for them into stardom. Now it's going to be a lot more difficult when those guys aren't going to be around as much. We'll see what happens with Pacquiao in his future. But at the same time, I just also wanted to say, Cass, and I said this at the start, I really think Mayweather's doing the right thing by retiring after September. Obviously, he could still have some great fights, but I'm a big fan of seeing someone go out on top and not stick around too long.
I think he has zero reason to stick around. He just got paid $100-something million. He says he's not having fun in the sport. Why would you continue to fight if you clearly never need to work another day in your life and you don't find it fun anymore? He says he might relinquish his belts, and he said that his next fight, his final fight may not be a championship fight. So that to me is very interesting. But yeah, absolutely. If you're not having fun in it, you definitely should walk away. So big congratulations to Mayweather. Whether you enjoy the fight or not, you can't deny the man's talent. And also, congratulations to Manny Pacquiao. I mean, at the end of the day, it was a 50-50. They both made the fight happen. They both, they went into that hotel room, they talked it out, and that's why the fight happened. Huge respect for both guys. So, I mean, and another, just sort of closing thoughts. Really happy with this week's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We had 4 big guests. We had, of course, Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson, the UFC flyweight champ. We had Luke Rockhold, Aussie Soa Palelei, and of course Karim Zidan from Bloody Elbow. A lot of big topics that we discussed. Russia with Karim, Jon Jones, and of course this Mayweather Pacquiao fight. Don't forget, guys, to subscribe on YouTube and of course iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, wherever you enjoy listening to these episodes. We will not be back next week, actually, because of UFC Adelaide. We'll be there. We'll be covering it. Don't forget to check out the channel. There's going to be tons of content. We're going to be at the media days. There's going to be the weigh-ins and the Q&A with Alistair Overeem, Michael Chiesa, and Jessica I. Tons and tons of content, tons of interviews, and then we'll be back on the following week. So I think that technically is the second week of May. Before we go, Dennis, any final words for the fans?
Yeah, guys, obviously this is a really cool moment in sports, the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. So in the comment section below or in the comment sections of the videos that you watch or on Twitter @SubmissionAUS, tell us, what did you think of the fight? Did it live up to your expectations? What do you think of the future of boxing? And like Casper said, all of the UFC Adelaide content will be bringing it to you. So make sure to keep an eye on our channel because there's going to be a lot of stuff coming for you.
Awesome. We'll catch you guys in 2 weeks. Have a great couple of weeks.